Greetings, Soul Tribe. A joyous rising, great rising, happy rising, rich rising, wealthy rising, happy Friday. Yay! It is Friday, August the 14th, 2026, and the time is 12:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on in the room, family. I'm so glad to see so many people already waiting for the chat. So, thank you so much for your patience. We will give you just a little bit of music while we acknowledge all of you here in the chat right now. We're going to have a special meeting today because a lot of people don't realize August is very, very critical. We just had the Lionsgate portal that was open when the sun in Leo was aligned with Sirius, Earth, and Orion's belt. When you have all those planets aligned together, you have powerful energy flooding into the planet and really into the multiverse. So, this powerful energy started between July the 28th and August the 12th. Now, the portal has now allegedly closed on the 12th, but that energy was at its peak on August the 8th. And something did happen on August the 8th that a lot of people missed. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But while the portal was open, it was time for you to manifest all the things you desire. And we're manifesting our sovereignty, our peace, our prosperity, and our wealth. Come on in, check in, family. I see almost 120 people in the chat. Hit that like button as you enter the room. Let us know where you're hailing from, and we'll get started with a special guest economist and world traveler to tell us what's going on in the geopolitical landscape and global financial news and how you can and must prepare yourselves and your family. And you can prepare without even having a lot of money. So come on in, family. Good to see you. Enjoy the theme music as we get started. Grand Rising. Welcome. Greetings.
Dr Pruitt, shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe.
If you enjoy the theme music, put a 1 in the chat, family. Come on in.
Scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes.
See you, family. Come on in the room. We don't want to be too long. Thank you. I see Jerry in the house. Welcome. Dana's in the house. Good day, ye are gods. Always good to see you. Grand Rising, Sean. Free day. I love this. Come on in the room. 150 people in the chat. Check in. Hit that like button as you enter the room, family. I'll turn it up for you.
Knowledge flows, breaking chains that hold us close, teaching paths to abundance and wealth.
I see you, Bay Area, California. Come on in the room. Good to see you.
Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Key.
Somebody said we've had 2 eclipses in 1 month. Wow. Come on in.
To a brighter, freer day.
Here's my favorite part. From currencies to investments.
She's helping her tribe to realign with wisdom, ancient and new, showing what we all can do.
Come on in, family. 2, you don't like the music so much, Toy. Peace and blessings. I'm glad you love. You love the music. Nice and soulful. Yeah, family.
Soul tribe rising, hear her call.
Just play the music to give you a chance to go get you a drink, to kind of calm your nerves, soothe you. Just get a notepad and pen. We're going to talk about some important things today. Come on in, family. And if this is too long, I apologize for this long intro. I love it so much. It calms me down and gives me an opportunity to collect my thoughts. Nice. Thank you. All right.
Lights the way to a new and brighter
Grand
day.
Rising. Louisville's in the house. Hey, Sister Toya, it's where I raised my children for 20 years. All right. So, tribe, keep checking in. Please make sure you hit that like button as you enter the room. Let everybody know who you are, where you're hailing from, because as we're talking here on the live, people be chatting in the comment section. And I love that for you all because you'll be sharing information on what's going on in your neck of the woods. You'll be talking about foreign currencies, where to invest, how to invest. You'll be talking about precious metals and all type of things, even inclement weather that's happening in your neck of the woods. And I love that. Some of you even exchange email and contact information like phone numbers. I love that for you all. So keep checking in, family. I see so many of you here. So this is Friday. Again, I will say happy Friday. Yay! It is the weekend. Let us know how you're doing. I don't want to be rude. How are you, my darlings? So good to see everybody. Well, a lot is going on. I don't think people realize what's looming. As I said, we just had the Lions Gate portal to close. And what's important about the Lions Gate is that that's, again, if you just joining us, a flood of energy coming into the multiverse. When the sun in Leo lines up with Sirius, planet Earth and Orion's belt, this energy is at a max. And this is what the ancients used to use to harness in order to create a joyful abundance reality. Because August, according to the Gregorian calendar, is the eighth month. And that month or that number eight is a number of prosperity and abundance. So on the eighth month or in the eighth month, you do certain rituals that are aligned with your values and your family belief system or traditions, and you create realities that you desire for your family. Now, this energy came in, or the portal, I should say, opened July 28th and it closed August the 12th. But on the 8th of August is the apex of the energy, the height of the energy when it reaches its peak. So a lot of things can happen during that time, not just in your life, but also the elite use our ancient knowledge to do certain things. And they did something on August the 8th that I will talk about in just a few minutes. But that portal has closed, but it doesn't have to close for you, right? Because you create whatever reality you desire whenever you want to, because you walk in alignment with prosperity, peace, joy, all of that. When you walk in alignment with that, you manifest whatever you desire at all times. Certain dates are just nice dates for you to know to really hone in on that energy. So, why did I bring on a special guest today? Because a lot of people don't realize that the war is coming to a close, if it hasn't already, the war between America and Iran. That means that now President Trump can focus on what's going on here in America. That's very, very critical because we've been waiting on news as it relates to our wealth. When is this wealth coming? That we were promised with NASARA and JASARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and the global version of that, even the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. And we've heard information about supposedly high income coming in, universal high income, where everybody will get an allotment of money, a large sum of money every month into a non-interest bearing quantum account. We know that's going to happen. I've been reporting on that for, my God, 10, 11 years. But we're like, when? Now, what some people are saying is it has to happen soon because with the advent of AI, AI is going to produce in an abundance of goods, right? And when you have an abundance of good being produced by automated systems and robots, that means people will not need to work. So how do you remedy this? Now we're going to have a surplus of goods and abundance of things that are here. Now we can live in luxury, but what does that matter if you don't have money or the resources? And this is where some economists, I don't know exactly where Dex Lattimore stands on that, but some economists have said that universal high income will come in. I call it, and have called it, Nasara benefits for the last decade. So many nations, such as Bahrain, Qatar, and oil rich nations, already have universal high income. They term it something else, and they have sovereign wealth funds that are created because these nations are abundant in resources, like oil rich nations are abundant in oil. And as such, the people in power make sure that money or that wealth trickle down to the people. However, what we're seeing happening is a promise of wealth while the economy seems to be in decay. So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to bring our special guest on, but let me introduce him and I'll talk to you about what happened on August the 8th during the course of our conversation. Many of you already know Dex Lattimore, but let me introduce him to those of you who have not met him yet. He is an economist and an entrepreneur. Mr. Lattimore received a dual bachelor's degree in economics and Pan-African studies with a minor in international business. He is world traveled and he sat with many chiefs, presidents, and prelates of different nations all over the world. He has worked with prelates, including kings and queens in Africa, and prime ministers and mayors in other parts of the world, including here in America. Mr. Lattimore has traveled to 3 continents and countries like Senegal, Ghana, and West Africa, Costa Rica, other South and Central American nations such as Brazil, and also he's been to the Caribbean island, and one of his specialties or favorites is Trinidad and Tobago. He was mentored by Malcolm X's eldest daughter, Ambassador Atala Shabazz. He has done many humanitarian projects all across the world. He is also a professional musician, for those of you who don't know that, and he's worked with top recording artists such as Molly Music and Dorinda Clark. You know the Clark sisters are if you're in gospel music. He is also a very, very family-oriented man. Family, without any further ado, please allow me to introduce to some and present to others none other than my son, the economist of the Soul Tribe, Dex Lattimore. Let me see if we can bring him in. And wouldn't you know it? There we go. My button had frozen. So welcome, Mr. Lattimore. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Excellent.
Yes, I'm so happy to see you here today. I know you've been very busy.
Thank you. It's
You're
good to be
welcome.
here. Good to see everybody.
And one of the things I forgot to mention is that you also, a part of your entrepreneurial, I guess, project. One of those is that you sell a whole life and life insurance, and you do Medicare, and I think it's called, what is it, health care? I don't know what you call it, long
Yeah.
term care,
Uh-huh.
things.
Yes,
And you
that's correct.
and you spoke to the personal group or the private group about those things, and you'll come on to the main channel as well as sometime in the future, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, Mr. Lattimore, I brought you on today because a lot is going on in the world. The war, to my knowledge, is either coming to an end or it has ended. But what most people don't realize is, I said the month of August is important because of the Lionsgate portal opening. And, during that time, you're supposed to burst through the portal, roaring like a lion, declaring your victory. So I don't know if a lot of people know that or not. But August is also very critical because we're only really 1 month away from the new fiscal year. Maybe 2 if you count. So this August, September is critical. And then September the 30th, 2026, at midnight, leading into October the 1st, is the beginning of a new fiscal year. And what a lot of people don't know is just 1.5, 2 months away from the fiscal year means that we could have a full on government shutdown?
Correct. It's very possible.
It's very possible because they haven't agreed completely on the finances. How do you say that? What do they need to agree on? A new is it financial policy? What do they need to agree on before the new fiscal year?
Well, if you remember during Obama's term, they often talked about the fiscal cliff that we
Mm,
were potentially going to fall off of. And so they have to come up with an agreement on in terms of things like, will they raise the debt ceiling? Will they continue to accumulate more debt? And then, as you mentioned many times on your show, we're getting to the point where the world is talking about the possibility of the return to the gold standard.
mm, mm.
And so right now that is in debate a lot behind the scenes, and obviously it's coming to the forefront of people's attention as well.
And before we get into what's happening with gold, I just want to show people that we that they're saying that a government shutdown is looming, and I don't think we realize, as you have brought forth to the show, I'm going to say a month or two ago, we're still under a partial government shutdown.
Right.
A government shutdown is technically possible ahead of the October 1st fiscal deadline. However, congressional actions are underway to prevent it. That doesn't mean it has been prevented yet, though. The Senate passed a bipartisan stopgate funding measure, a continuing resolution on August the 12th, the 8th, excuse me. August the 8th again was the apex or the pinnacle of that Lionsgate energy that we talked about. So they passed a bipartisan, what they call a stopgate funding measure, extending federal funding through December the 12th, though negotiations with the House remain ahead. So negotiations with the House are not complete yet. So they passed a bipartisan stopgate funding through December 11th, but it sounds like it's not completely decided. Current federal funding expires at midnight on September the 30th, 2026. The Senate passed a stopgate bill in a 96 vote to push the funding deadline to December the 11th. The House previously favored a stopgate option extending funding to December the 4th. But there are hurdles that remain. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind, not just to get excited that there's an extension in terms of what's going to happen with the finance of the fiscal plan, but the Senate version temporarily, people forget that word temporary, that doesn't mean forever, doesn't mean permanently. The Senate version temporarily blocks certain administrative grant approved changes and handles specific border or ICE funding provisions. In terms of House approval, lawmakers must reconcile differences between the House and the Senate stopgate timelines and policy details before a final package can reach the president's desk. It sounds like a final package has not reached President Trump's desk yet. And although some people are celebrating things passing through the Senate, it is not final. Since this is not final, and the fiscal deadline is approaching September the 30th at 12 midnight, it's still possible that we could have a government shutdown. Can you speak to that before we even go into gold?
Yeah. So obviously, as you mentioned, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I was on your show late last year and early this year talking about the AI bubble and the everything bubble. So we're
Mm,
looking at a possibility where things could collapse, right?
mm,
And it could happen in a sooner time than people predicted or expect. And so we're rushing, unfortunately, to a time where no one really knows where the future is, what the future holds. And the reason for the shutdown could very well be because we're reaching that cliff where the empire falls off the cliff and
mm,
something new has to come into existence. And
mm,
so we're looking at right now what could be the case. And again, no one knows exactly what the future holds, and things kind of have to go perfectly for like the AI bubble in order for everything to work, for the expansion of the AI to come about the way people have expected it to. And so
Mhm.
we're really at that precipice where we're just trying to figure out exactly where things will go from here. But certainly we do know that what it was in the future will no longer exist for the American empire, the U.S. government.
When you spoke of the fiscal cliff, all I could think about is Janet Yellen, who was the Fed chair under the Biden administration, saying, "We've reached the debt ceiling. We have to take extraordinary measures to heal ourselves." And she said that one of the things she thought about doing was actually taking money from government workers' retirement in order to make themselves whole. So when she said we reached the debt ceiling, what did that mean?
Well, it's like again, the country is in $40 trillion in debt,
Mm,
and it's kind of like maxing out your credit card.
okay.
If after you've maxed it out, you can no longer spend the money, and so then you have to do one of a few things. You can either stop spending and start to pay off your debts, or you can ask for a credit increase, right? And so America has been basically asking for a credit increase for the past 15 years or so. Now, the way I like to look at it is, okay, the government collects $5 trillion, right? That's the amount of money that we have per year circulating.
Okay.
So between the money that the government collects in taxes, right,
Mhm.
and the other things that they collect, we make about $5 trillion, right, but we spend per year about $7 trillion.
Oh.
And again, our overall debt is 40 trillion, right? So that's kind of like if you have a budget, a personal budget, you make $50,000 a year, but you spend $70,000 a year, and however you owe in total $400,000, right? At some point, the debt collectors are going to come and they're going to say, okay, you need to do something in order to pay off this debt.
Mhm.
Now, do you default? Do you go into bankruptcy? Right? What in terms of a government, what governments do is they declare themselves insolvent when they can't pay off their debt. And this is where the U.S. is at right now. Is that as you mentioned again on your show several times, the government has already declared insolvency, but they have not really made it public, and they have not really shown what that looks like and what that means for the country and for the world, really.
Yes, and it's interesting because the United States Incorporated did not necessarily say that the government was insolvent. The government won't, like as you said, won't say that they're insolvent, but the United States Treasury Department, which is part of our lawful government, the Republic, came out with the report September 2025 that most people didn't even see.
Right.
And is this it? Reveals America. Yes, the United States Treasury reveals America is insolvent. And famed economists warn of fiscal catastrophe. Is your portfolio prepared? Is what Yahoo Finance said. So it's interesting. Another article that I brought up to the Soul Tribe once said that the media missed it. And it's not that they missed it, it's that the United States government itself won't come straight out and say, we don't have any money, we can't pay our debts. But the Treasury Department, which has the authority to say that because they're part of our lawful republic, actually made that announcement. And that actually happened September 2025, right before the government shut down. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
interesting time.
what would that look like though? We have to ask our questions. What would it look like for the government or for the media to publicly announce that the
Mhm.
nation is insolvent, right? We'll have an immediate stock market crash, right? We're already having a lot of troubles in the economy, right? We already have job losses at extreme heights, right? We already have severity in homelessness in the country. And so they're trying to avoid catastrophe, right? So
Mm.
the best way to avoid catastrophe is to not bring it up. And so that's essentially what we've been doing. We've just been trying to avoid, kick the can down the road, buy
Mm.
ourselves a little more time, see if we can fix things, right, before all of the trouble hits our door and we actually have to accept where we are as a nation.
So the government is insolvent, doesn't have money, it cannot pay its debts. What else is going on in terms of the insolvency? Countries around the world used to support the United States government. Can you talk about how they supported the United States government financially and tell us if that anything has changed?
Yes. So um, governments around the world for the last 80 years have been buying US treasuries, right?
Okay.
Buying US dollars and holding them as their reserves, right? So the US dollar has been the global reserve currency for all governments. And over the last 5 to 10 years, governments have really kind of start belling out on America and saying, we don't want to hold your dollars anymore, right? Because 80 years ago, after World War II, when America won the war, uh, or America helped to their allies to win the war, America became the dominant country and the dominant power of the world.
Mm.
And so it was beneficial for all of these nations to hold the US dollar, right? The dollar was the strongest currency in the world. But obviously, times change, right? Empires rise and then they fall.
Oh.
Um, Before the US was Britain, right? Britain was the global power. And after World War II, Britain basically transferred their power, handed over the baton to the United States.
Mm.
What happened during the world wars, Europe had to finance the wars because obviously World War One and World War II occurred in Europe, right? So those nations were devastated after the war. And in order to finance the war, they sold their gold to the US and they
Mm.
borrowed money, right? Post World War II, America had accumulated basically all of the gold from the major empires, right? The major countries of the world, which were the European powers at the time. And then that's the reason why uh, during Bretton Woods, it was decided that the US dollar would become the dominating dollar because they were backed by gold at the time.
See, were you going to say something? I was going to ask you a question if you weren't. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, you said countries all around the world were buying up United States Treasury, they're buying their debt. You explained to me one way how United States would pay that money. Can you explain that? What that looks like buying up a debt or Treasury bonds?
Yeah, so when you buy a bond, you're basically giving money to the government. You're loaning money to the government,
Okay.
and the government gives you an interest rate on that money.
Mm.
So a regular person, for example, can buy U.S. bonds, right? Say
Okay.
you buy $1,000 of U.S. bonds, U.S. Treasuries. What the government will do is pay you the interest rate, say
Mm.
at 5%, for example. So they'll pay you that 5% each year until the bond matures.
Okay.
Once the bond matures, then they will give you back your principal of $1,000, for example.
I see.
So governments, they hold billions of dollars, right? Japan has, I believe it's about $1.5 trillion
Mm.
of US treasuries. And
Okay.
so even when you look at what's been going on in Japan, Japan has been in the news over the last several weeks
Mhm.
in several
Mhm.
months because their currency is in a crisis. And if things get too bad, then they will have to start selling their US treasuries, right? They will have to start dumping their dollars and dumping their treasuries and
Mm.
putting them back into the market, into
Okay.
the global market. The problem with that is, again, no one wants the US dollar and no one wants the US treasury anymore. So when there are no buyers, then you have a problem. And currently, the US is in that problem, in that crisis mode where, again, nobody wants to hold their currency.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so this is the reason why all of these nations over the past several years have been actually selling their dollars, selling their treasuries, and buying gold.
Mm. Speaking of gold, David is saying 55 years tomorrow off the gold standard. Tomorrow is 5 times 5, which is 25. So 55 years we've been off the gold standard. Very interesting. All right. I just wanted to mention that since you mentioned gold.
Yes. Right. So when you look at you look at gold and its relevance to the US history and the world, in the 1930s, after or during the Depression, the president of the United States of the time made an announcement that U.S. citizens could no longer hold gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they confiscated the gold of the citizens and they changed the exchange rate from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. And essentially, what they started doing is printing money, right? The Federal Reserve started printing money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you fast forward from the 1930s to 1971, and in 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard, right? Because nations around the world were saying, "Hey, we want our gold, right? We don't want to hold dollars. We want the gold that you're promising us." Because even though the nation said, "Okay, the citizens can no longer hold gold," right? Because a dollar is essentially an IOU. It's
Mm-hmm.
an IOU stating that this paper is worth this amount of gold. And anytime you want, you can exchange this paper currency for the gold that we have in our vaults in the banks. When the citizens were no longer allowed to do that after the 30s, they still had a window of time where governments around the world were still able to transfer their paper dollars and collect the gold. But America was having a problem because too many countries were buying the gold and not holding the dollar. And so this is the reason why Nixon said, okay, well, we're just going to eliminate the gold standard. Right now, we're on a petrodollar, and you don't really need to worry about how much dollars are in the system. Just know that the dollar is the strongest currency, and we also have the strongest military to back our dollar. So
Right.
you're just going to do what we say, and you just have to accept it.
So now here we are. Go ahead. We're going to say something else.
Go ahead.
I was going to say now here we are where all countries are deciding to use their own local currencies. At least they made an agreement, and they've also repatriated their gold back to their countries. We're in a precarious situation to some, it seems, because it looks like the dollar is collapsing. Other countries are using gold. What's going to happen here in America? But I yield to you. Or
Well,
using
that
gold to back their currencies, their local currencies. Go ahead.
right. That has yet to be fully determined. But as you have mentioned many times on your channel, many countries are, or excuse me, many states are actually putting gold back um, into the market and saying that we will start to use gold as the standard. So
Mhm.
really, it's only been again 80 years that we've been on this dollar system
Mhm.
where the U.S. dollar was the currency that was used, and before that, it was silver and gold. So we're really
Mhm.
returning back to the times where we have to use silver and gold. And at the very least, we have to fix our currency based on the amount of gold that we have in our reserves, which kind of really puts a limit, it puts a ceiling on how much of the currency is actually in existence, right? Because you can only have a fixed amount of currency when you're actually pegging it to something like a hard asset like gold and silver.
You're right. As I have reported that many times, and I'll just bring up a quick article here that was put out. I think this is the Sound Money Defense League. And I've been reporting on gold and silver since you and I lived in Ghana in 2014. And we actually lived on the gold mines. And you can speak on that in a minute if you'd like. We lived on the gold mines. We saw the Chinese mining gold like crazy. And we saw European nations mining gold as well. And so we knew something was changing in 2014 and 2015 when we were there. And so I started paying close attention to that. And at the time, I realized there was a book came out that said Africa is China's second continent. That was in 2014. So I knew something was going on with gold and silver, and you were really looking into gold at that time. And as I paid attention, state by state, states started acknowledging gold and silver as legal tender, meaning you could buy local goods and services with silver and gold, but they were quiet about it. And what they were doing behind the scenes was repealing or removing the state sales taxes from precious metals. Because when you remove the taxes from precious metals, you are acknowledging that metals cannot be taxed lawfully according to our republic. And you're now saying silver and gold, they're not a commodity, they're actually real money. So to date, we have the last article I saw said 45 states had repealed or removed the taxes from precious metals. But then when I looked up, so what's the remaining 5 states? And now the articles that you see, it'll say 4 states remain instead of 5 that have not repealed silver and taxes from the sales of precious metals. And if my memory served me correctly, that would be Hawaii, New Mexico, Maine, and there's another one that escapes me. Washington. Those are only the 4 states that remain that have not removed taxes from precious metals. So we are very, very close, Mr. Lattimore, to being, in alignment with the rest of the world. And I'll show you this
Absolutely.
one. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll show this one last article that says, and I've been reporting on this, you and I have been since February 2023. The whole world has been hurtling or rushing back toward gold as money. And I yield to you.
Definitely. The world, as you mentioned, is running back to gold as money. And we can see that in the price of gold, right?
Hmm.
So if we look right now, today, gold is at $4,400,
Okay.
right? $4,450 currently. And even just the last time I was on your show last month, gold was hovering around $4,000,
Hmm.
right? So in just really, it took off again about a week and a half ago, and it
Okay.
shot up. I would say last week from Wednesday to Friday, it shot up 10%.
Hmm.
All right, and so we've been hovering at that same place over the last week. But when you take a look back at gold, um, really for the last 2 months, it was hovering around the $4,000 range,
Mm-hmm.
but gold had taken a huge decline since its peak. It peaked in January of 2026 at
Mm-hmm.
about $5,400,
Yes. Yes.
and from the start of the war with Iran, gold started taking a dip, and it
Hmm.
really dipped to about 33% decline from its peak up until about a week ago. Really, when you look at, again, looking at the war in Iran, it's pretty much been coming to a close.
Okay.
And since that time period, governments have gotten back into the purchasing of gold because they know obviously that gold is real money, and they are putting that into their banks and their coffers to be able to have and store. And when the revaluation comes that you mentioned often in your show, they will be able to say, this is the amount of gold that we have, right? And based on this amount of gold, this is the value and the strength of our currency.
Mm, mm,
So when we're looking at, again, when we're looking at the price of gold, if you pull up a chart on gold and
mhm.
you go back for the 1 year period.
So can I, which you want me to pull it up?
Uh-huh.
There's, okay, I
Yes.
see one on goldprice.com, but I don't know if I could, will it show me? Oh yeah, I think it will. Hold on. I see your questions, family. We'll get to those during our question and answer period. Just a minute. Okay, gold price performance here.
Hmm.
Let me see.
And over the last year, gold is up 31%,
Okay.
right? So gold has really been taking off
Yeah.
for the
Lot of,
last year, right? And if you can look at, I don't know if you are able to see in the last 5 years, gold
mhm,
is up about 150%,
about
right?
140
So gold has over,
right here.
yes,
Uh-huh.
gold has doubled in
Mm,
price, more than doubled in price in the last few years. And so
mm,
that's just an indication that, again, countries are now accumulating gold. And it's actually gotten to the point where the US is announcing, right, the financial advisors are advising wealthy people to add gold into their portfolio.
mm,
Because up
mm-hmm.
until last year, the financial consultants advise people against holding gold, which is ironic, but they would say that you want to have your portfolio to be about 60% stocks and 40% bonds. Now they're saying you need to have at least about 10 to 15% of your portfolio in gold. So
Mm,
now we're seeing a trend where even the US citizens and the wealthy people are now accumulating gold. So
mm,
for the average person, this shows that you do want to hold gold, right? Because obviously, as you mentioned, gold is real money, right? It's a physical asset that has value, right? It has intrinsic value. The US dollar is a fiat currency. It does not have value except for the ability to use as an exchange mechanism to purchase goods.
mm. Yeah, and gold, and I was also say my favorite metal, silver as well. Can
Yes.
you
And
talk
so
a
if
little?
you if
Go
you
ahead.
pull up, yeah, if
Hmm.
you pull up a chart of silver, right? Silver again, same thing. Silver took off over the last 2 years. Really, from January 2025 up until January of 2026, silver went
Wow,
on a crazy spree.
wow,
And
wow.
over the last year, it's up 70%.
Yes, yes,
Right. Over the last 5 years, 177%, or 171% rather, excuse me.
yes.
But we're just seeing that now everybody, at least in the background, people are nations and wealthy people are accumulating silver and gold in high numbers. And it's really had a parabolic move upward over the last few years. Now, um, again, when we look at Iran, right? Go ahead and can you go back up to that?
Yes, I was going to ask if you can
Because over the
address
last 6 months,
why do we see a decline in both gold and silver over the last 6 months? That could cause some people to be a little, panicky. Like, oh my gosh, is my investment
right?
declining?
Mhm.
What's going on?
So before, January of 2026, gold and silver had taken a parabolic move straight up.
Mm.
And it was nations that were buying in excess.
Yeah.
But once the war started with Iran, then nations had to sell their gold, right? Because
Mm.
you you buy gold because of its value, but you need dollars in order to purchase goods, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what what the nations were doing, they were selling some of their gold because they had already accumulated so much um in the when they purchased. If you purchase silver, for example, at $20 or $30 a year or two ago, and you watched it shoot up to $120, then it's a great time to collect some to lock in some gains, as they
Mm.
say.
Mm.
And you sell a small portion of your gold, you sell a small portion of your silver in order to gain US dollars and buy oil, for example,
Mm.
right? Buy the products that you need. And so nations were doing this exact thing once the war started, right? Once the war in Iran started, then the gas prices and the oil prices shot up
Yes.
astronomically, right?
Yes.
About 30%. And so other nations said, okay, well, since we have this valuable asset being gold, being silver, we're going to sell a little bit of this in order to be able to purchase the oil that we need to keep our economy going.
Mm.
So over that time, if you look at the price of gold and silver from January 29th, it took a 10% decline. Then it
Mm.
went up again up until March, right? February 28th of March 2nd. That's when the war in Iran started.
Mm.
Then it took a nice downward trend, and silver from its high went from $120 roundabout to hovering in the $60 range. Right. So that's a 50% decline from its height. Now, if you're an investor, you use this as a buying opportunity, right?
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
like if you like Nikes and you go to the Nike store in January and you buy a pair of Nikes for $100, and you go 3, 4 months later and you still like Nike and you want to buy another pair of Nike shoes and they say 50% off, most people are going to say, hey, that's a perfect opportunity to buy two pair, right? Because
Yeah.
I was already going to buy it at $100. I brought $100 being prepared to buy a pair of shoes. If I see it at 50% discount, then this is a perfect opportunity for me to buy two pairs.
You know that remind me of give me two pair. Give me what was it? Two pair of my
Stuff
Air
in them
Force
Air
Ones.
Force Ones. Uh-huh.
Give me two pair. I think that was in the 1990s.
Early 2000s.
Was it early 2000s? Yes.
Uh-huh,
Okay. I
uh-huh.
did. Uh-huh.
Now, for the people who were late in the buying spree, if you bought silver at $100, if you bought silver at $120, then when you watch it go down, you said, "Well, I don't want to hold this," because
Mm.
a lot of people were not true investors, understanding the value of what they were purchasing. And so they saw it depreciating and thought that it was really depreciating in value. And so a lot of people started to sell their silver, started to sell their gold because they bought at the height and they were buying it with the expectation that it was just going to go up.
Mhm.
But that's not necessarily how assets move, right? That's not how even stocks move. Everything has a nice movement. Things go up and things go down. But again, if you bought silver at $20, $30 and you saw it shoot up to $100, $120, you said, okay, well, this is a nice time to lock in some gains.
Mhm.
All right. This is a nice time to sell a little bit of the top at the top and hold the remaining amount and expect that the prices will go down some, right? Take off some of those buyers who were just in for the move up, and once it goes down, you use that again as another buying opportunity.
Yeah, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to
Exactly.
walk away, know when to run. My son's a musician. That my husband, their father, was a consummate, a wonderful musician, very very talented. So all my children are musicians. So whenever I hear certain phrases, automatically I think of a song. Everything
Exactly.
you touch is a song. Shout out to Chris Marcus. Chris Marcus is in the show. He might not be in the chat, but he's watching today. We're talking about silver and gold. Chris Marcus is a great friend of mine. I just want to shout him out because we've been talking a lot lately about precious metals. Chris Marcus has a channel called Arcadia Economics. Shout out to Chris. Subscribe to his channel, like his videos because he talks about silver mainly, but silver and gold. And he is the one that actually introduced me to Andy Sheckman. And as you all know, I've been affiliated with Andy Sheckman for a long time, who owns Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company. But I want to shout him out. Please, if you want to learn more about silver and what's going on with silver prices, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to his channel. But I shouted him out, Dex, because I remember my first ounce of silver that I got was actually one of the first ounces, I would say. I bought my first ounce, I want to say, like right before Chris had a silver symposium, but I just bought it off the whim. And then Chris, he had a silver symposium in 2020, and he started talking about silver. And I joined that symposium. He sent me a silver coin. All right. And that silver coin at the time was like as low as, I want to say, was it when I my first ounce was like 11 or 12, no, $14 when he sent me that first new silver ounce, that I 1 ounce silver. I might have been like between 14 $15 an ounce. So I held on to what I bought and I held on to what he gave me because I just bought one just because, you know, off the whim, people were talking about silver and I forgot I even had it. Chris sent me that 1 ounce of silver and I was part of a silver symposium. And oh my God, it reawakened something in me or unlocked something in me. And now that he and I are talking and you are talking about silver and gold, now I'm like, that 1 ounce that was like $15 an ounce, it has multiplied immensely. I will not sell my silver. I don't care if it goes down. I don't care what it does. It fluctuates. I'm not selling my silver because at what, $15, $16 an ounce? How much of an increase is that now at $65 an ounce? It has increased what, by 4 times, 5 times?
Right.
Yeah.
3 4 times. And so when you look, when silver was at $15 and it went to 120, that was a 7x. Right.
Wow. Wow.
So this is the reason though that investors actually do sell some when you have a parabolic move like that, because if you, excuse me, if you purchase silver when it was $15
Mm-hmm.
and you watch it go accumulate value up to $120, that's an excellent opportunity to cash in some silver and
Mm-hmm.
buy things that you need,
Mm.
right? So you might take some silver and buy a car, right? You might take some gold and buy a house, right?
Whoa.
Something that you have that is going to also be valuable, right? But even when we consider again what happened earlier this year, people were buying gold and silver up until the war, and then gas prices shot up. So that's
Right.
another reason why the price of gold and silver went down, is because people still have to live. And
Mm.
you can't go currently to a gas station and say, hey, give me $20 with this ounce of silver
Mm.
on my tank.
Mm.
You have to have cash. And so a lot of people were selling their silver, selling their gold in order to have the liquid money, right? And so again, we do want to understand what is going on and what has gone on in the markets so that we can be able to be sound investors and we can know what we have, what we hold, and the value that it holds, and then be able to know how to use it in the opportunities that it presents itself as, right? But you don't want to be foolish in holding things and selling things at the wrong time and for the
Mm.
wrong reasons.
And you were talking about, making sure we have silver and gold as investors. Somebody might say, well, I'm not really an investor. I'm an everyday person. How can I afford gold at what, $4,300 an ounce? And silver, even at $65 an ounce, is a lot. Do you have any advice for how people can get into this investment of silver and gold? And one thing Andy Scheckman did also teach me is that silver and gold is not just an investment, it's wealth, something you can pass down to your family, your children,
Exactly.
and your posterity. So, how can people, if they're interested in accumulating wealth, precious metals, how can they do it affordably?
Right. So there are things that you've mentioned on your show before, like gold backs, right? That is a great way. You can also buy lower denominations. You don't have to buy it by the ounce. You can buy it by the gram, all right? And then
Hmm.
also there are things that people often don't think about, which is investing in mining stocks.
Mm.
So that is always an option, and it's also a great option because a lot of people hold stocks, own stocks, but they own only one or two types of stocks. They might own the S&P 500, for example, or other index funds. They might own the Nasdaq, right? A lot of people have 401ks and IRAs, but
Mm.
most people don't even know what they have in their stock portfolio, right? Because their company invests for them. But again, looking at mining stocks is an excellent opportunity to be able to buy in small increments and be able to invest in their portfolios and invest in wealth building, right? In order to have a nice diversified portfolio.
Yeah, and speaking about diversified portfolios, you've come and spoken with our private group about how to add to your portfolio, how to add silver and gold, how to add or consider adding mining stocks and some other commodities. If you're interested, family, in joining the private group so we can talk further about investments, Dex Lattimore, who is an economist, and he also has colleagues that are certified financial professionals, often or come into the group. He comes often. He's now starting to bring some of his colleagues to come in. Please consider joining the private group here. Here is the link. I'll put it in the chat. You can also just go to any of my videos or on my main YouTube channels and just put in hit the join button. Once you hit the join button, you follow the prompts and you're in. As a matter of fact, not today, tomorrow, we're going to talk about in my private group how there is another investment other than gold and silver that people are missing. They're looking over that may be more valuable than silver. Some people say this might be the new gold. So hit that join button, family. You'll be in. We talk about investments in silver, gold, other metals, as well as foreign currencies and other investments. In other words, how do you beef up your portfolio? So join a private group, you'll learn more about that. And also, if you are interested in silver and gold, as Mr. Lattimore said, you can buy lower denominations of gold and silver. Okay. You can go to, and I brought this website up while he was speaking, and then I'll yield the floor back to him, goldbacks.com. Goldback.com. Right now, you can buy one gold back. This is what it looks like here. There's a one, I think it's popping up on yours. These are what gold backs look like. This is real 24 karat gold on a polymer note. One go back costs $8.78. This is used right now in many states as to buy as money or legal tender to buy local goods and services. We first brought this website to the attention of my private group 2 years ago. A lot of people didn't even know about go backs. I've been talking about go backs for almost 10 years when I was talking about gold RM notes. But we brought this website to the private group. We taught them how to use gold backs to buy local goods and services. And right on this website, you can put in your zip code and it will tell you the merchants in your state that accept gold right now, gold backs and silver for local goods and services. And if you are a merchant and you want to accept gold backs, it talks about how you can do that. This is an amazing time in which we live, family. We are not being left out of the gold standard. And I yield to you, Mr. Lattimore.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say is that people have to change their mentality. A lot of people say, I can't afford, I
Mhm.
don't have it. And instead of saying I can't, you have to ask yourself, how can I? Right. A lot of
Y'all can tell
people
that's my son,
over
right? Go ahead.
a lot of people over the years have spent a lot of money gambling, right? People go to the casino throwing away money. People go buying lottery tickets expecting that they're going to make money. And even
Mm,
if you're spending $5, $10, over time that accumulates. Now
mhm,
imagine if you were buying $10, $20, $50 a month in silver, for example. If you were
mm,
buying $10, $20 in assets and investments that are not just gambling, right? Now, we do have to understand investment has risks involved, right? Everything per se.
Uh-oh,
But
say that
when you're
again. Your
investing,
internet.
you have,
We didn't hear your internet was spotty. Go ahead. It was going out in and out. Or mine. I don't
yeah,
know
I
who's
said in investing, nothing is guaranteed
right.
necessarily, right?
Right.
But you have much higher chance of having a reward and a return on your investment when you invest in sound assets as opposed to just gambling and throwing your money away on
Mm,
things that you really have a low possibility of winning. Like, for example, what's the possibility of a person winning the lottery?
mm,
Like, if 10 million people play the lottery, you have a 1 in a 10 million chance in actually hitting the lottery and making a lot of money. But when you're investing, you're not expecting for your investments to shoot to the moon in such a short time frame. So when you're investing, you want to give yourself time to be able to build your portfolio, to be able to build wealth, right? Because you have a lifetime to be able to achieve these goals. So you don't want to think about it in terms of, oh, well, I want to be a millionaire tomorrow, because the chances of that happening are slim to none often for
mm,
people. But if you're investing in the right things, right? If you invested in silver when you did, right? When it was $10, $15 an ounce, and
mm.
now it's tripled, quadrupled, you made a nice return on your investment.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's the reason that's the way that we want to look at investing, as something that you do over time. You put in whatever you can afford, right? And you watch it grow and accumulate, and you watch the value of that asset or those assets, because you do want to have a diversified portfolio, right? But you want to watch your portfolio grow over time.
Mhm.
2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. If you're buying in every month, small amounts, buying gold backs, buying silver, buying gold, buying uh, stocks, and have a nice portfolio, then over time you can watch your wealth grow.
Absolutely. Shout out to Devin. Thank you so much for the gift. Devin gave $99, $100. Thank you, Devon. Is it Devin or Devon says, grateful for you both. we're in for amazing times. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for that gift. Creator bless you. Heaven smile on you is our prayer. We really, really give thanks for all of you that are here that give financially and also of your time and energy. So thank you so much. Mr. Lattimore was talking about investing, and so I was looking for one of my banners here because some people don't know where to go for gold and silver. Now, my gold and silver business has been kind of, you know, fluctuating because some of my channels get taken off or I get flagged often. It's a little better now, but I had been an affiliate with Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company. Let's see if I can find that there. Yeah, here it is right here. Oh, that was the ticker for the bottom. If you want to, let me tell you, if you want to invest in silver and gold, you can go anywhere, family. You can go to my affiliate, Miles Franklin, and call them at 952-929-7006 and let them know you heard about gold and silver from the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show. You can send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. You'll get a very good price if you mention that you learned about gold and silver from the Dr. Kia Pruitt Show. They also have a 401k plan where you can actually get a gold IRA, I should say, so you can roll over your 401k, your retirement, into a gold IRA, and some of that you can get into your hands as physical gold. So that's Miles Franklin, 952-929-7006, or send an email to info@milesfranklin.com. However, having said that, there are many online dealerships. What you should do is your research. You can go to appmex.com, jmbullion.com, sdbullion.com, goldenstatement.com, greatamericancoincompany.com, and or you can just Google coin shop near me. I'm always a proponent of people forging relationships with local merchants in their own towns. That's important. I'm going to yield, and I will ask Mr. Lattimore, why do you think it's a good idea to have relationships with local merchants, including a gold and silver coin shop?
Uh, there are several reasons to have a personal relationship with your local coin dealers. One is so that you are informed on what's going on in the
Mm-hmm.
market, right? It's always important to be informed, to stay informed, to be in the know, and to not be ignorant of what's going on in the market. Another reason is because you want to be local, right?
Yeah.
You want to have local ties, local connections. You don't always want to have to rely on purchasing things on the internet or over the phone. You want to be able to walk in a store and
Mm-hmm.
have direct face-to-face conversations and face-to-face exchanges in order to really be able to develop a relationship with people who are in the business.
I remember you and I went to talk to our local coin dealer, and the guy was giving us some good information because gold and silver had actually gone up. And I was asking him about silver. I was like, silver shot up. It might have been right around the time it had gone all the way up to 130. He said, he looked at us in our eyes and he said, it's going to go down to about $70 an ounce. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, right. He told us, didn't he? And lo and
Yes.
behold, it happened like maybe the next week. I couldn't believe that.
Right, because they know what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're actually very much involved in the the business. They are the business. So
Mm-hmm.
you can pretty much trust that they have sound judgment in what they're talking about because they're seeing what the public does not see.
Mm-hmm.
They are very much involved in a whole nother level, a whole deeper level than the average person.
That's
And
true.
unless you are a part of the group behind the scenes, then you will not know what is going on until it happens, until the rest of the public knows what happens. And so, again, this is the reason why it's very important to have um, a connection and relationship with your local dealers. And one more way that I'll say
Mhm.
that you can accumulate gold and silver jewelry.
Jewelry. Come
Right.
on. Come on. Yes. I actually had
Wealthy
a
people.
foreigner tell me that they tell each other that when you
Mhm,
come to America, buy jewelry. And
mhm,
so if they get in the bind, they can sell it. But go ahead. Go ahead.
mhm. Yeah.
What-
Wealthy people have a lot of jewelry specifically because it's another way of accumulating the assets that they want to hold, right? And a lot of people, a lot of our people, for example, we buy jewelry without really understanding the value of things
Mm,
and without looking at it as an investment. But wealthy people, for example, will have jewelry so that they can do things like take their jewelry to a bank,
mhm.
put it in a vault, put it in a safety deposit, and get loans against their hard assets, against their
Come
jewelry.
on. Mm.
So again, there are definitely several
Wow.
ways that you can invest and several ways that you can use your investments in order to be able to benefit from what you have. But you have to know what you have first, right? You
Mhm.
have to educate yourself, gain
Okay.
the knowledge, which obviously people on your channel are subscribed to this channel specifically because they are looking for and attaining the information. But then once you have the information, what do you do with that information? How
Mm,
can you utilize it to your benefit? Right? We don't just want this information for entertainment purposes, obviously. We want to be able to build wealth for ourselves and our posterity, for ourselves and our families,
mm,
right? We want to think long term, not just next week or for the weekend. We want to think not just for ourselves, right? We want to think 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road. What will your children have when you
mm,
pass? What will your grandchildren have when you pass?
mm.
What will your great grandchildren have, right? If you are 70 years old, you can, I mean, in a lifetime, you can live to see 3 and 4 generations of your lineage. But when you die, what will they have?
Mm, mm,
Are you building anything? Are you accumulating anything for them?
mm, mm,
And that also goes to what you mentioned. Another business that I'm in is insurance, life insurance,
mm,
because this is again one of the ways that wealthy people build their portfolio. You can buy a life insurance policy and be insured that when you pass away, your heirs, your beneficiaries will receive money
mm,
guaranteed.
mm,
And so this is again different things to build your portfolio. And you want to know what you can do with the cash that you have with the understanding that this paper dollar is losing value as we speak. So then you want to use the currency now in order to accumulate the wealth so that when the time comes where we're talking about returning to the gold standard, you're able to pass things down that actually have value to it.
You mentioned life insurance. If anybody is interested in life insurance, Mr. Lattimore is going to come on this show one day to just talk exclusively about some of the things that his company offers. But in the meantime, if you want to reach out to him, you may reach out to him by contacting him via email at dexlattimore.com. I'm not Dex Lattimore, Dex Lattimore at gmail.com. DEXLATTIMORE at gmail.com. And that way he can answer your questions about um, whole life insurance and anything that he's talking about today because he likes to stay in contact with those that he have met on the show. But he will come back to talk about those things. And we did that in detail in my private group. If you want to look at that video, because we don't know when Dex Lattimore will be back on to talk about life insurance, then please join a private group. Join a private group because in that video that I did with him and the financial professional that he brought on, we also talked about precious metal stocks. We talked about just different ways to add to your portfolio to diversify it so it can have many different assets. You want to have more than one asset class or asset in your portfolio, your wealth portfolio, because you don't know what's going to revalue, what's going to pop, what's going to decline even. But if you have a mixture, then that's the best way to protect yourself. In that video we talked about how to protect your wealth and how to protect even whole life insurance, and how just having life insurance is an asset that the wealthy use. So again, join a private group. I'll see if I can find that for you. I had the link somewhere in the description section or in the chat here. I'm going to click on this right here and I'll put it in the chat again in case you don't see it there. Let me see if I can bring that up for you. Just 1 minute. The private group is very important because it's a group of like-minded people who are accumulating wealth for their family and their posterity, meaning their future generations. And we talk about how to do this with very little money. As we just said, Mr. Lattimore said you can buy gold backs. Gold back is local, it's used as local goods and services right now. It's only one gold back note is a little over $8. It's real gold, 24 karat gold pressed on a polymer note that's used right now to buy goods and services. And if you go to goldback.com and put in your zip code, they'll tell you which merchants accept gold right now. Okay, so I just wanted to push that out there. You can reach him at dexlattimore@gmail.com, and you can also join our private group where he speaks exclusively and answers lots of questions in our private group. When we bring people to the private group, it's an intimate time to discuss these things, and people can bring out their personal information if they feel comfortable. Mr. Lattimore, before we move on, I want to say there are also I would say inexpensive ways to purchase silver. Do you know of those ways, or can you mention any ways?
One of the ways that you can purchase inexpensive silver would be, again, to purchase it in lower denominations, right? And then obviously you can buy junk silver, which is a lower rate. So those would be two ways that I would say that you can buy silver at a cheaper rate than just buying it by the ounce.
And people, another term for junk silver would be constitutional silver for some people. Constitutional silver or junk silver actually contains 90% real silver. You can get those at pawn shops, antique shops, estate sales, yard sales. Where else? Even your local coin dealer will have constitutional silver, and some online dealers like Miles Franklin Precious Metals Company. So you get constitutional silver at 90% silver. Another sterling silver is 92% silver. So jewelry, sterling silverware, sterling silver, I guess, serving dishes and serving trays. So there's a lot of ways. Again, as Mr. Lattimore said, instead of saying, I can't, we must ask ourselves, how can I? And I will tell you why. Because the moment you make up your mind, the universe will conspire to assist you. They say when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you might be saying, I desire silver and gold. I don't see how I can fit it in my budget. Or you might be saying, I have some and I want to add more, or I just want to make sure I'm on the right course. This is why we're here today. Constitutional or junk silver, that's 90% silver. Sterling silver is 92% silver. They sell it at pawn shops and antique shops. Sterling silver jewelry, even very inexpensive. Gold backs, go to goldback.com, and jewelry, pawn shops, antique shops, estate sales, yard sales. There's a plethora of ways to get these assets and add them to your portfolio. Where do we go
And
from here?
for those who say that I can't afford it, I would like, if unless you don't have a job, then if you make money, if you have a job, then you have money. And then you have to ask the question, where do I spend my money? How do I spend my money? A lot of people buy or spend a lot of money eating out, for example,
True.
right? A lot of people spend money on clothes and fashion, on purses, on hair products, on shoes. We spend money, So that means we have money.
Mm,
So you really can't say that you don't have it unless, again, unless you don't have a job
mm,
or if you don't have an income. But then if you have an income, then you can look at ways to reduce your spending,
mm,
right? Even if you're talking about, okay, I live alone.
mhm,
If you have family, then you can find ways to come together in order to eliminate some of those bills and or to reduce some of those bills and use that as an opportunity to build wealth, right? This is what, for example, a lot of foreigners have done. They've come to the country, they will move 10 into one house. They will use the money, all 10 have a job, have an income. They will purchase that house, which is an asset. It has value. It has appreciating value. The problem often for our people is that we buy things that depreciate in value instead of buying things that appreciate in value. So, for example, cars. If you need a car, that's one thing, but just getting upgrades on your car every few years, getting upgrades on your cell phone every few years, buying the newest iPhone, that has a high cost. And the moment you buy that phone, you cannot sell it at the same cost that you bought it at.
mm.
Once you buy that new computer, you can't sell it at that same price. Once you buy a car, you can't sell it at the price. It depreciates in value. So then, how do you find ways to save money in order to be able to invest in appreciating assets, whether it's a house, whether it's gold and silver and jewelry, right? These are things that appreciate in value. They gain value over time. And that's what we want to do is we want, in order to build wealth, you have to have things in your portfolio that gain value over time.
Somebody just asked that question. Hi, Saya asked what appreciates in value. You said precious metals,
Yes. Precious
land,
metals. Yes. Land
land.
is the number one because in order to get any precious metals, you have to have the land to be able to mine it from. In
Mm.
order to get oil, you have to be able to dig in the land, right? In order to build a house, you have to have land. So land is the number one appreciating asset that gains value over time.
And we're not talking about houses, we're talking about land. So, house is just like the ornament. This is what they don't teach you or teach us, but you know about it in real estate. I'm going to bring my son Douglas Lattimore, who is an expert in real estate and land. He always tells people that yes, the house is nice. Uh, whereas most what you call real estate experts would say, "Do you love the house? Then you should get the house you love." Mr. Lattimore, my other son Doug, would say it's not just about whether or not you love the house. That's just an what do you call accessory? What is the land valuable? Can you grow food on the land? Is the land enough to build upon? Is this something you can pass down? Because the wealthy always say this is one of their principles: never do what? Do you remember
Never
that?
sell the land.
Never sell the land. So a lot of people, historically, especially if you're from the indigenous community, were tricked into selling our land and moving to the city. Either we're tricked into selling our land and moving to the city, or we needed to find opportunities. Sell the land, move into the city. Now I'm living in an apartment and we don't have any appreciating assets. Well, we now need to go back to all of us, whether you're indigenous or not, go back to the land. The land, you can sustain yourself when you have land. And I yield to you, Mr. Lattimore.
Absolutely. Another thing that I want to talk about is AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay,
All
let's
right.
get into it.
So artificial intelligence obviously
Hold on,
have.
before you
I'm
get
sorry. Go
into
ahead.
that, the
Hmm.
people are saying you're spot on. Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. And we're going to get to your questions as well. I just want to say, Mr. Lattimore, does sell whole life insurance. So you can contact him at dexlattimore@gmail.com if you have questions about that or anything that he's talking about today. And if you're interested in supporting his work, but if you want to send a donation, you can send that to $Dex Lattimore, DEXLATTIMORE. And yes, he is related to the Lattimore entertainers. We discovered that. And also the Lattimores or the Latin Moors were workers for the kings. What did your bloodline do for the kings in Europe? What,
Oh,
translators or something
there
like
were translators.
that?
Yes.
Translators. For the king.
And,
Go ahead.
I see in the comments somebody said that they have a job, but
Mm,
they need another to
mm,
constantly move faster with aggression. And that is
mm,
a point that is
mm,
actually very important. I would say, if you have a job and you feel that you're not making enough in order to invest,
mm.
get another income,
Okay.
right? Even if you're working for 6 months or 12 months at another job part time, that gives you a whole nother income to be able to invest,
Mm,
right? And so we don't want to just be content with the amount that we have right now today. We want to find ways to be able, if you want to be more aggressive in your purchasing and in your building of your wealth and your portfolio, find those ways. If you work 20 hours a week, see if you can work 25. If you work 40 hours a week, see if you can work 45 or 50 hours a week and get overtime, so that again, you can use that money that you have in excess, the excess amount of money that you're able to accumulate. Don't use it to go on a trip, on a
mm,
vacation, right? Don't
mm,
use it to go party for the weekend. Use it to accumulate wealth, right? Wealthy people have multiple streams of income,
mhm.
right? They often don't just have one. They say the average wealthy person has about 7 to 10 incomes, right? So
Wow.
they're, yes, but now they're not trading only their time for money. They're finding different ways to work and different ways to be able to allow their abilities to work for them and work to their advantage. This goes to something else that you mention often on your show. Education is a great equalizer, right?
Mm, I like that.
Educate yourself in things that will be able to make you and your abilities more productive and more valuable,
Mm,
right? This is the reason why knowledge is power, as they say, or at least knowledge brings the potential of power, right? Because obviously you can know something and not do anything with the knowledge that you have. But if you're finding different things, if you work in a factory, for example, and you're trying to consider different ways that you can increase your value, you can go to uh, a trading school.
mm-hmm.
You can become an electrician, for example. You can raise the value of your worth and of your ability by educating yourself. You can take courses in AI, for
Yeah.
example, right? Because as we know, AI is here and it is definitely the future. So you want to look at different ways that you can add value to yourself so that you can find these ways to invest. And there's always a way. You just have to first be willing to put forth the effort.
And I'll also say some of you already have wealth and don't even know it. Silver is in your cell phone. This is why you see Walmart and other places have these little stands that say, "Give us your phone, we'll give you cash." Okay. So they're always constantly looking for ways to take what you already have. This phone, all phones have silver and probably copper in it too. Your computer
And go.
and gold and cobalt that they get from the
Mm-hmm.
Congo in Africa. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your cell phone, your computer. your refrigerator and stove, your microwave oven, your washer and dryer, all of your appliances contain silver and Mr. Lattimore saying and gold. So think about what you already have. A lot of times people throw away their computers. I used to just give it away or throw it away or whatever until I realized that. And I'm glad I kept it, because now I know I have wealth. And as a matter of fact, my son asked me the other day, do you have your old, which computer was that?
Mac.
Mac, and I was like, oh God, I hope it wasn't that during the time I was just throwing stuff away. But thankfully, I still had it. It still has precious metals in it. And family, your car. Why do you think? Oh, that's another. I was looking at how many millionaires have college degrees. Actually, more than I thought. 88% have bachelor's degrees. But your catalytic converter, it contains more than silver. It contains three primary precious metals from the platinum group: platinum, palladium, and rhodium. Who would have ever thought? These rare metals act as chemical catalysts coated onto an internal honeycomb structure to turn toxic exhaust gases into safer vapors. Why do you think these car lots have been saying, oh, you can just trade in your old car? Pull it, drag it, haul it. We don't care. We'll take it and we'll give you cash, or we'll add it to, we'll let you trade it in for a newer model. And they only really give you what, maybe $100 off or so. But it contains platinum, palladium, and rhodium. Do you know how much those metals are right now? Let's check it out. You have wealth. You just might not know it, family. So I'm going to get off here because in a minute and yield to Mr. Lattimore because he wanted to talk about something else. But let me show you. If you have a car, okay, you see gold is 4,399. It's going up. Silver is 65. Platinum right now is $1,761 per ounce. Palladium is $1,356. And I don't even know about rhodium, but you can look it up. I don't think they have rhodium on here. You have some wealth. So I'm bringing this up to you now so that I can see this into your consciousness. You're already wealthy. You already have some. Now all you have to do is add to the wealth that you have. And I yield to you, Mr. Lattimore.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point. Excellent points.
Thank you.
Now, going to the AI bubble or the AI build out that's occurring, right? The reason why we have to understand what's occurring is because when we look at history, for example, AI is similar to the cotton gin, or I'll give an analogy so that we can understand how AI will give us the opportunity to where people will not have to work. You mentioned it earlier that we're transitioning into a time period where people are not going to have to work.
Mm-hmm.
And going back over 100 years, about 150 years or so, when the cotton gin was created, before that, it took 100 people, for example, to pick a cotton field, right?
100. Wow.
When the cotton gin was created, it took one person to run that cotton gin, that machine, and they did the work of 100 people, right? And so because that one machine was able to do the work of 100 people in a fraction of the time, you had the slaves with a lot of free time. When the cotton gin was created, the slaveholders knew that the end of slavery was fast approaching. Because now, what do you do with all of these people if they don't have to work, right? You got to let them go. You got to let them free. And so now we fast forward to today, and you take AI and technology, and AI being the brain and the technology being the muscle. If you have technology that's able to do the work that people were doing at a fraction of the time with more precision, more accuracy, then what do you do with the workers?
Mm.
Right. And so then the answer is you got to let them go.
Right. Right.
So this is the reason why they're saying that we are fast approaching a time where people will no longer have to work.
Mm.
Right. Now, the problem is for those who are the companies, you don't want to roll it out too fast.
Mm.
Right. You don't want to scare the people. You don't want to make the people too aware too quickly. And so they give a process of time to be able to roll out the things that they know is coming in the future. This is the reason why you've been talking about universal income for over a decade, and it was behind the scenes being whispered in closed doors, but now it's publicly being discussed. Even in the news, they're talking about will we have universal basic income?
Mm.
Well, yes, because we're getting to a time where people won't have to work. All right, factory jobs, uh, uh, lawyer jobs, uh, software jobs. All of these jobs are being cut, being slashed in record numbers over the last year, really, because now you can set a program to do all of that work. You can set a robot to do that
Yeah.
work. But again, you can have all of these, you can have AI and technology to do the work, but who's going to buy the products?
That part. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right. So now this is what we'll see over time, over the next several years. We'll see the prices of things go down drastically.
Mm.
And we'll also see things being rolled out like universal basic income.
Mm.
Right. And the irony is that in truth, the country, if not the world, is becoming socialistic and communist because uh, you can share the wealth. There is enough for people to have an abundance, but universal basic income is socialism, communism, basically. Right? This is people
Mm.
don't have to work.
Yeah.
The state provides the money because there's an abundance of wealth. Right? You talk about sovereign wealth funds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These oil countries have been doing this for several decades now. Their citizens don't work or don't have to work, at least not all of them. And those
Mm-hmm.
that choose to work can have a higher income than the average person. But the majority of the citizens don't have to work because just with one asset, oil, they make so much money that the state, the nation can provide for its citizens. And so we're walking into that time period where the countries of the world, each country can provide for their own citizens. This is again the concept of the sovereign wealth funds, of universal income, because we're at that point where we already have the assets, right? And we have now the technology to be able to not have to use our physical labor.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see. And just like me said, socialism and communism sounds too much like like a takeover. You have to know what the true definition of socialism is and the true definition of communism, of communal living and social living. The true meaning of that is that we have such an abundance of wealth that we share the wealth. Now, you're right in that the elite have, co-opted those ways of living and they held the wealth and they only gave a fraction of it. This is why you're a part of the soul tribe over here, though, because we tell you that you can use whatever information they give you and look through a positive lens. So if it is socialism, communism, and they're only giving you a little at a time, which they're actually going to give you a significant amount per month, you take what they give you and you invest in hard assets like businesses, like land, like silver, gold, and all the other precious metals. So when you look from a positive perspective and a positive lens, that's why Mr. Lattimore talked about doing a paradigm shift or changing the way we view things. When you look through things through a positive shift, you say, okay, whatever they do, I'm going to use it and I'm going to make it better. I'm 100 exit, 1,000 exit. That's what a positive mindset says and does. So that was a good point, but you have to know what socialism and communism come from, and you have to look at it from your positive position. Whatever they get, even with the fiat, okay, fiat dollars, they're worthless right now, worthless, losing value. Most countries all over the world decide they're going to stop trading with the dollars. Okay. Therefore, everything attached to the dollar is going to collapse with the dollar. And with all the money printing, it's lost its value. However, while it still has a little bit of value, you take that $8 and you buy a gold back note, which is 24 karat gold. You take the fiat that you have once you sell something or some part of your savings and you buy some land, you buy some stocks, you buy some other real estate. You see how that works? And then you share the wealth. Okay, go ahead,
You know
Mr.
the irony? Most people
Yes.
don't understand what capitalism is in the first place. And most
Oh,
people don't understand what socialism is either.
mm-mm.
We are already a partially socialist country. Social welfare programs is
Wow.
socialism. They're giving money away without you having to do work in order to gain that money, right? So the point being, we're already in a hybrid system.
Mm,
Capitalism is all about people having to work to accumulate
mm,
capital, and the majority of the people doing the work in order to benefit the few.
mm.
Socialism is about those who are able to work being able to benefit the masses of people. But then we have to understand that every country that became socialist in history, they were not necessarily just socialist countries. A lot of them were dictators and
Mm.
fascist countries, right? Disguised
Yeah.
as socialists. But when you look at most of the communist countries today, they have free healthcare, free education,
Mm.
right? Whereas in capitalism, it's all about making money. And it's not about you making money, it's about the corporations making money and the government making money. So this is the reason why we see our prices always going up. The cost of school always going up. The
Wow.
cost of healthcare always going up because they are trying to always accumulate the capital. But it's not about you, the average person.
Mm.
So for me, it's not about promoting one thing or another. It's about understanding everything that is and how it exists and why it exists.
Okay. I just wanted to double check that I knew, about the indigenous systems. I'm indigenous, so I spoke based on my experience and what I know. But and, I wanted to look it up, see what AI said. They say indigenous communities were not socialistic in the modern political sense, but they share functional similarities like collective land use and wealth distribution. It's a part of many indigenous systems. Their systems were rooted in kinship, spirituality, and survival rather than European political ideologies. So, you share collective land, which some people would say is like communism, right? Resource sharing, food from hunting or gathering was routinely shared or redistributed among its members. Community welfare decisions prioritize the common good, and vulnerable members of our society were taken care of. That's what I think of now when I think of socialism and communism in terms of what we're returning back to, but not the Eurocentric or the capitalistic um, thought process behind communism, socialism. So I'm so glad you brought that point up, because I really desire for us to think back to what is in alignment with what we used to do as indigenous people. And if you're not indigenous, think back to what makes sense for your communities.
And for me personally, I've never been a Democrat or a Republican. I've been an independent
Okay.
in political, in politics, and in my thinking. I'm independent in my way of thinking. But we got to
Mhm.
understand that what's going on in politics, even the Republican, the Republicans are moving left, right? There are time periods where the parties, the political parties move far right. Both
Mm.
parties simultaneously move far right, and there are time periods where they move further to the left. And we're at a time period where the Republican Party is actually moving more centered and to the left than we
Mm.
think and understand. And
Okay.
this is the reason why the Democratic Party is moving further to the left. And this is
Mm.
why today we have a lot of Democratic socialists that are outright saying we are Democratic socialists and are outright being elected. And the Republican Party, in order to maintain relevance, has to move with
Mm.
the population because the people decide who gets elected, right? And so, in order to get the votes of the people, the government, the both parties have to move in one way, one direction or the other,
Mm.
right? And so, what's going on right now, even when we look at President Trump right now, he is literally using government funding to buy stocks in companies, to
Mm.
buy shares, to buy ownership in companies. That's socialism. They're just not branding it as such.
Mm.
But just because they don't call it that doesn't mean that's not what it is. In socialist countries, the state or the government controls the or owns the businesses. And so again, we're already in that trajectory. It's just that people are unaware of what's really going on. And I'm just presenting the information so that we are aware of what is actually occurring.
Yeah. I also want to ease the Soul Tribe's mind. I know we've been tricked, abused, misused, had so much stolen from us, we are forced to pay taxes and all that. So when we hear things like universal basic income, socialism, communism, and we're going to all have a certain amount of money, we just by nature of what we've been through and on this planet, you just automatically think, oh my God, we're going back to a hard system. But I want to encourage you because things are changing. The contracts are up. United States Incorporated is losing its power. It's defunct. It's insolvent, has no money. It can't pay its bills. And for those that don't know, the Corporation of the United States was a group of bloodline families that usurped authority from our lawful republic here, and they incorporated themselves in 1871 as a nonprofit religious organization with the Pope as the forefront or at the head, and they had their own constitution called the Constitution of the United States. They were based on maritime law, admiralty law. They considered us dead property, chattel property that was used to pay off their debts. However, our lawful republic is now resurfacing. It has never gone away. It's just been co-opted. The lawful republic here in America has a constitution for the people. Okay, for that constitution for the republic is not the Constitution of the United States. The republic is our lawful way of doing things. We acknowledge sovereign rights, whereas the United States Incorporated only acknowledge what they call citizenship. That is a status that the corporation gives people, and they give them privileges. But our lawful government acknowledges sovereignty, nationality, and they don't call you chattel property, okay? And they acknowledge gold and silver as money, whereas this unlawful entity had its own fiat based on paper that was backed by nothing. That system, that system that co-opted our lawful republic, they are defunct, bankrupt. Even the United States Treasury Department, that's part of our lawful government, said that they are insolvent. And the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that they have overturned the doctrine that gave the United States Incorporated so much power, that made their powers expansive. The Supreme Court overturned that doctrine and stated that the United States Incorporated was unlawful, unconstitutional, and treasonous. And that all 447 government agencies have to be dismantled because they're treasonous. This is why we are under a government shutdown. That's why government workers are losing their jobs. It's bad because it's hard for a lot of people, but it's good because we're moving back to the republic. The Supreme Court also came back. They did that overturn the Chevron doctrine in June 2024, but in July they came back and said the Federal Reserve, which is the system, the banking system that's attached to the unlawful government, now has to go away. And what they did, the way they took power from the Federal Reserve central banking system that printed out money that's attached to the United States Incorporated, they said state-sponsored banks, which is part of the lawful republic, can operate independently from the Federal Reserve central banking system and have their own charter, their own way of doing things, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. Because states, according to our republic, they are separate countries. America is actually a continent. The states are countries. They have their own rules, their own laws, their own charter, their own theme songs, their own way of doing business. They are now printing out and will issue out gold-backed currency. So you see the collapse of one system, but a resurrection of another lawful system. And under this new lawful system, we won't use fiat dollars anymore. We will use gold and silver. Another thing I want to say is you have universal basic income and then you have universal high income. Universal basic income was money that the government gave that would cover basic needs like housing, food, clothes, that kind of stuff. But now economists are changing that. We still say universal banking income, but we want to encourage you. Economists are saying, let's call it something new. Let's rebrand it and call it universal high income. Some people say, but it's still coming from the government. Yes, in some ways, because we have a sovereign wealth fund. That wealth fund is a trust comprised of precious metals, land, oil, other resources, rare earth minerals. And that trust also has revenue from tariffs and trade deals. So that sovereign wealth fund other nations have. Like Mr. Lattimore talked about, oil rich nations, they already pay for healthcare. They already have free education. And those countries, look up Qatar, Qatar, I think it is. Qatar, their sovereign nationals live very well. Okay. Now we have a sovereign wealth fund that will give some of that universal high income. Okay, President Trump, when he came back in January 2025, said, I'm creating a sovereign wealth fund comprised of all those assets for the people, for humanitarian efforts, and for the infrastructure here in America, and to invest in other assets and countries. So you got the sovereign wealth fund, and remember, you also already have a trust. If you were born in a hospital and you have a birth certificate, okay, that birth certificate bond was traded on the New York Stock Exchange with interest accruing. That money and that trust was supposed to offset all your living expenses, but it didn't. It didn't happen. That's going to be returned back to you. So I'm just bringing this information out to you to let you know, family, that things are changing. We've entered a new golden reality, and I'll yield to Mr. Lattimore to add to the discussion however he sees fit.
I will say that we have been living in such a very corrupt system for so long that we think it's normal.
Right.
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 For so many generations and so many hundreds of years that we think that we're supposed to have to go to work. Right. But before this country was colonized, do you think the indigenous people went to work?
Ooh.
Absolutely not.
Mm.
There was no such thing.
Mm.
They built a system that we now think is normal, but prisons were not a thing.
No.
You educated your own children, right? You didn't have to go to the hospital because you ate
Mm.
natural food.
Let thy
But
food
everything is capitalized. I'm sorry, go ahead.
let thy food be thy medicine.
Right. Everything is capitalized in this Western system to where now, if you want to eat healthy, you buy organic food,
Mm.
which is
Mm.
still not natural,
Mm.
right? You have to go to the hospital to in order to get the medication, but they're not going to tell you where they get the medicine from. They're getting the medicine, obviously, from the herbs and from the plants. That's how you make the medicine, right? But again, we have been in this system for 400 years.
Mm.
And the reality is the system is collapsing.
Mm.
They no longer can control this country, and they most certainly no longer can control the world. And now what's transpiring is we're in a time period as we speak where America has been up here sitting on their high horses, taking all of the resources of the world.
The United States of America Incorporation.
Yes,
Incorporate.
the corporation of America.
Mm-hmm.
Now the rest of the world is catching up
Oh.
to where the United States has been. So this
Okay.
is a reason why there's a lot of suffering going on here in this country that
Mm.
we haven't seen in maybe at least 100 years since the Great Depression.
Mm. Mm.
But it's a necessary time period because it's like I've mentioned to you off the scene before. It's like you have a family, you have a parents, they have 10 children,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the oldest is spoiled rotten. The oldest eats first, eats the most, and bullies all the other nine.
Mm.
And then at some point, the parents say, you know what? Okay, that's enough.
Mm.
Oldest, you're gonna have to step back. You're gonna have to share because there's more than enough, but you can't be the only person that's eating.
Come on.
America is obese, right? Metaphorically and physically and technically.
Literally.
We got more obese people than every other country in the planet.
Mm. Mm.
Why? Because all we do is consume.
Mm.
We take, but what do we have to give? And the rest of the world is saying, you know what? You've taken enough. It's
Mm.
time for you to share. And what that does for the corporation of America, the United States, is it drains the system because
Mm.
this capitalist system is built on the backs of slaves. They first enslaved the people here in this country, and then after slavery, when I talked about the cotton gin, once they said, okay, well, we can't enslave the people in order to pick cotton, they said, well, we'll expand slavery. And now you have to go work in the factory. And then
Mm.
they expanded slavery to where they said now the entire world has to work in order to survive. And if you don't work, then you don't get to eat and you don't get to house yourself and you don't get to clothe yourself. But these are basic necessities.
Mm.
Why would the creator put us on a planet
Mm.
and not provide our basic necessities? And so now the system that we live in has categorized things and made things stigmatized to where when we hear a word, we're afraid. Socialism, oh, it's got to be bad. Communism, oh, it has to be bad. But look at the root of that word, communal. How can communalism really be bad? How can the social, being able to take care of the society, be a bad concept? This is just what they taught us. And now all of the things that we have been taught are collapsing, right? And thus the saying, learn, unlearn, relearn. And now we're in the time period where now we are having to unlearn all of the BS that they taught us. All of the nonsense that they taught us was good. It's good to have to get up and go to work 40 to 60 hours in order to put a roof over your head. Not really. Before they came to this country, the society together built the house for the next family. You didn't have to go to work and make money in order to be able to pay for a house. You didn't have to take money to buy land because the land was nobody's. The land is everybody's. But in capitalism, it's all about accumulating, and you have to have haves and have nots in capitalism. There has to be a group that doesn't have in order for there to even be a group of wealthy people that accumulate more than the rest of the population. Now we're entering the time period where no longer can those realities exist, and they are not being accepted anymore by the masses of people. And again, you have technology that is making it to where it's not even possible if they wanted to.
Mm.
China, for example, is building skyscrapers in 2 days, 3 days
Oh my God. Come
because of the technology. We are at such a high technological level of advancement that things are happening. The things that it took us 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to build a 10-story building here in America, it takes at least 2 to 3 years to build. In China, they're building it overnight. They have whole ghost cities, what they call ghost towns in China, because they're building so fast that they can't even keep up. Right now, what happens when they expand that technology outside of just China and they expand it throughout Asia and throughout Africa? There will not be villages where people are living in shacks anymore. It's not necessary. You can build at such fast capacity today where overnight we are seeing the world change. And this is what's going on. This is the reason why Americans don't understand what's going on. But I would advise some people to look outside of America and see what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They are building at such a fast pace, and America can't keep up. The reason why America lost this war is because we're a capitalist country, and it takes $4 to $5 million to build one missile, and it takes Iran $10,000 to build a missile that this $4 million missile can't even shoot down. So we had to exhaust all of our missiles. We had to exhaust all of our resources in order to try to defeat this small nation that we should have stumped, technically. But we can't do it because the world is advancing. The reason why AI, they're calling it a bubble, and at some point it's going to burst, is because it's costing so much money for this AI expansion to even occur, and China already did it at a fraction of the cost. 10 cents on the dollar that we spend to do the same exact thing. This is the reason why now companies here in America are saying, you know what? I love my country, whatever, that's great. But the cost to do business is more important than maintaining this ideology. And so they are buying Chinese AI, Chinese technology, because it costs so much less, they can do all of their business at a fraction of the cost.
Someone says
So
thank
all of that just to say that we have to change our mentality. don't just hear words and just automatically associate stigmas and attach stigmas to words and ideologies without understanding the full meaning and the concepts that are being discussed.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Absolutely. We really do have to do a paradigm shift where our whole mind does a radical shift because we've been indoctrinated so much to support and believe in the old system. And some of us don't even realize that we still believe in the old system. We believe it's real, it's true, it will never go away, but it's collapsing. Having said that, I'm going to get into the question and answer period. But Mr. Lattimore, I have done many videos on motu proprio. And when you talked about how the government enslaved here in America first enslaved the indigenous people misclassified as Black, African American, Negroes, whatever. We are the indigenous here on these lands. The Pope Francis, the former Pope, sent a letter to President Obama in 2014. And basically, he said, our time is up. The United States Incorporated's time is up. He said, we have incorporated ourselves, we enslaved people on the planet, and we've done a lot of bad things. He went on to say presidents are not presidents of the country, they're presidents of the corporation. He said, but we must stand down, the corporation, presidents must stand down, the court, not Supreme Court, he said the court systems, the whole system, policy enforcers, also known as police officers, must stand down, and the whole system must stand down. And if we don't, there will be a grand army of the republic that will form that will force us to stand down with General Ham at the head of it. He said, because it's been our policy to enslave African Americans and use them as chattel property to pay off our debt. And then it became our policy to enslave everybody and pay off our debt. So you mentioned that, and I just want you to say that was in Pope Francis's letter that he sent to President Obama in 2014, just letting everybody know the system is going to collapse. Now, we can stand down now or we can do it later, but it's going to collapse. So if anybody's interested in that video, here it is. You can look for that on my channel. And I'll also put the link in the section. I can read just a section of what he said in that motu proprio letter, but I'll yield to you in case you want to say something about that.
I would just say that the system has already collapsed.
There you
They
go.
just haven't made it public.
Mm,
And the wars that have been occurring throughout history have been the same one war
okay.
of people coming to this, not just this country, but to this planet
Mm,
and oppressing the indigenous people.
mm-hmm.
And they expanded right out of Europe or the Caucasus Mountains area, and they took over Europe, they took over the Middle East, they took over Africa, they came to America, they took over the Americas, and they dominated the world. But it has always been a fight. And it's gotten to the point now today, when we fast forward to where we are today, that they have not been able, because we're talking about fighting against inevitability.
Mm,
At some point, inevitability will hit, and it already has. And this is the reason why they're making it public. Stand down. If we don't stand down, then somebody, and they're saying this group will make us stand down. But if that group doesn't make us stand down, that's because we're fighting the entire world. You can't win against everybody. That's insanity.
mm,
And so again, we're just at that point where they can no longer play this game, right? The World War One was not what they taught us it was. World War One was a war against the Ottoman Empire,
okay.
because the Ottoman Empire actually controlled Eastern Europe and the Middle East.
Mm,
When the West won that First World War, they took all of and they owned Northern Africa, the Ottomans did. They took all of those empires, or that the land of those empires, and they divided them up into the countries that we know today: Iraq, uh, uh, Turkey, and all of these other countries. World War II was the same fight occurring. The Cold War was the same fight occurring. This is technically World War III. They're not going to say it, but
Mm.
this is a world war. But the West has lost the war. And now we are in which they already knew. They could predict it. They could see it coming, right? They have analysts, right? They have think
Mhm.
tanks. They do war games where they map out what is possible, who will win what war. They knew all of these things, but they said, okay, but we still have to do it, right? We still have to fight. Give ourselves a fighting chance. Even though we're fighting
Mm.
against inevitability, we still want to give ourselves a fighting chance. Because when you have nothing,
Yeah.
then you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that's been their model since they came out of where they are from. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. But the indigenous people had everything to lose.
Mm.
And so we lost everything. They took over this planet, they took over this country, they took over the resources, and then they told us that their way was right, was correct. And so now we have a westernized mentality without understanding what really has been going on all of this time.
Absolutely. And I would encourage people to think beyond humans, because when we speak of they, we're not just talking about the humans that were put in power. We're talking about ancient bloodlines that are attached to extraterrestrials that came here and overtook the land. At least that's what I'm talking about. So
Yes.
yeah, there were extraterrestrial beings that are not human that came on this planet and they blended in. You remember Kendrick Lamar's song, "They're not like us. They're not like us. They're not like us." I don't care how they try to act like us, think like us, behave like us, wear our clothes. These beings masquerade as all type of beings. They shapeshift, but they
Mhm.
really love masquerading as indigenous copper colored people for some reason and as Moors. So, what I would encourage you, Mr. Lattimore is going to speak on that a little bit more as he sees fit, but I would encourage you to go to my YouTube channel and look at a video that I did with a young elder called "Who Really Rules the World." Some people call it the hidden hand, some people call it the black nobility, the dark nobility, black absence of color. The black nobility. There is a hidden hand, dark forces that are actually engineering racism, sexism, feminism, all these isms, because they need to have us fighting against each other, and they need us to think one group is better than the other. That's why they created the Caucasoid race and put them in power, so that they can now have the resources that was given to them, and then they could think that, some of these races that were created or that were mixed with, the indigenous bloodline, they could think that they have a natural position on the planet. Meanwhile, you have the indigenous people suppressed at the bottom trying to fight their way back up. But who's behind all this? The black pope, the black nobility, who's not even human. Those are the beings that brought Christopher Columbus over here and his European slaves. But that's saved for another discussion. You can watch this video that I did with the young elder who dived deeply into that. And now later on today, I'm going to put up a video that the young elder, Chief Rod Hayes, and I did together, the three of us, to show that this is a bloodline war that has little to do with humans, more to do with extraterrestrials who are fighting against the indigenous people that are the gods of the land, the ones that sprung from the source. So this is a bloodline war that's been going on that a lot of people don't know about. We just,
Yeah,
even if you don't believe it, don't think it, don't know it, at least watch this video, because you'll see there's so much more than what we've been told. You know about draconians, reptilians, right? You know about
the
these
grays and
other,
all of that. Yeah.
say it again. Go ahead.
The grays, the Gremlins, the all of these. We've heard of these things, but
Right.
we don't. They don't tell us. They don't explain it, right? Even in our Bibles, they've made it a religion, but
Mm-hmm.
religions are created to control the masses.
Mm.
But as you said earlier, this is spiritual warfare,
Right.
right?
Right.
You start from the beginning in the Bible when it talks about Adam, Eve, and the serpent,
Mm.
right? The serpent, what they'll say, if you when you look at it on a spiritual aspect, the serpent impregnated Eve, the woman. And that's the reason why when Adam, the second son, when Eve was pregnant, the creator said, I will put enmity between your seed and his seed, Adam's seed. Talking between the serpent and Adam, that one will war with the other, right? Adam's son in the biblical text,
Mm.
Cain was not Adam's son. Abel was Adam's son.
Mm.
This is the reason why when Cain murdered Abel, after that, in Genesis chapter 6, it begins Adam's lineage with Seth, the third son, the third child,
Mm.
not with Cain,
Mm.
because Cain was not Adam's seed. Cain was the serpent's seed. And when we look at it on the spiritual aspect and we look at the different beings that were coming down onto this planet, if you look at the book of Enoch, it says that these beings came down and mated with the women, impregnated the women, and created a hybrid race
Called the
of people.
Nephilim.
Hybrid. Say it again.
They were called the Nephilim.
Exactly. And even in, again, the biblical aspect in Genesis 6, I want to say, after it gives the lineage of Adam, then it mentions the Nephilim, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that they came and they were the giants and the rulers of this planet. But in the book of Enoch, it explains further in depth what the story was.
Mm.
But now, what did they do? The Catholic, the Romans, the Roman Empire took this information and put it in a very precise way to where first of all, the people couldn't even read, right? The average people were not allowed to read.
Mm.
It was only the priests that were even allowed to have access to the book up until 1611, when whatever king what king created did the printing press and pushed out the Bibles.
James? Not
Yeah,
James?
there you thank you.
Okay.
Yes. But up until then, only the priests had access to the Bible,
Mm.
and the priests would tell the people what they wanted to hear. But the average person did not get a chance to read this information. So now today, we don't even know what's in the book. We just follow the religion, we follow the church, but we don't know the truth.
Mm.
And we can't break these things down on a spiritual basis and understand the full and true meaning of what occurred and where we are today and where we are headed.
Speaking of that, pastors, I would see if I could find that short clip, but pastors all across the globe, I'm told, they were part of a meeting. Some of them, they were chosen and told, you must tell the people the truth about the Bible and the God of the Bible, because it's about to come out. It's going to be disclosed that extraterrestrials seeded people on the planet. Just wait till they find out that allegedly Yahweh, or the God of the Bible, is Enlil. You had Enki, Enlil, Nimno or Ninhursag, that's the female. They were brothers and sister, Enki and Enlil, brothers and their sister Ninhursag, who allegedly seeded the indigenous people here in the Americas and maybe even on the planet. And then you had some extraterrestrials came and mated with the people, the indigenous or the people here. And you had extraterrestrials that seeded other people here. And then they created hybrid races. Well, allegedly, according to some texts, Enlil its creation and wanted to be worshipped. And it is Yahweh or the God of the Bible. And that's why the God of the Bible allegedly likes blood and asks for blood sacrifices. I mean, just so many um, different philosophies of what happened. So this is why it asks for everybody to bow down. This is why it asks for blood and flesh and communion and all that, but tells you to not worship other gods. Most societies were not monotheistic; they were polytheistic, where they had many feminine and masculine expressions of God or of culture or of rain and other things. But allegedly, Enlil doesn't really like its creation. And so Enlil got rid of humanity during many different resets, including Noah's flood, the flood. But his brother Enki loved their creation. So Enki said, I'm going to save a remnant. So Enki went and talked to Noah, told him how to build the ark. And the gopher wood came from Florida. Florida's the only place on the planet that has gopher and some of the other supplies. So that's how we know that Eden, the Garden of Eden is here. You can even look it up. It'll tell you the Garden of Eden on Google is in Florida. So Enki, Enlil, and their sister Ninhursag or Ninhursag, Nimna, they always leave the woman out. She is the feminine, the female, the sister that helps seed humanity on the planet. But these are according to some Sumerian texts. Not only did you have Enlil, one of the brothers, to destroy the planet during one of the resets, but they came through many different resets, and not just Enlil, but other beings came from behind the ice walls to unalive humanity. So we've had at least 7 resets on this earth plane, and COVID was supposed to be one of the other resets. However, the Galactic Federation, of whom Enki, Enlil, and Ninhursag, or the Anunnaki, are a part, said, no, you Anunnaki beings and you other extraterrestrials seeded humanity on the planet, and you gave them your DNA. They have a right to come to the table and be part of the Galactic Federation. They have a right to tap into their God nature and fly again. They have a right to regrow their limbs again. They have a right to teleport again. They have a right to manifest all these things that they used to manifest or that their creators manifest. These beings called humans and even mankind, the kind of man that was grafted from us indigenous people, have a right to experience wealth. So the Galactic Federation of Light said, we are now creating a new reality, or we're going back to an old way, the way it used to be, where they can now realize and live in a wealthy place again. So we're going to restore the gold. We're going to restore the precious metals. We're going to take it away from the bad Anunnaki or the bad extraterrestrials, and we're going to restore it back to them. And they're going to have a period of time where they live extremely wealthy, where they live extremely affluent and enjoy life on a very abundant, high vibrational planet that's ascending, just like we're ascending in consciousness. And we're going to change their bodies from a carnal state back to a crystalline state so that they can utilize all of the energy they were created to utilize in this new so-called new golden reality. And then we'll get to a point where we won't need money at all. Everything will be wealthy. So pastors have been told, get this information out. All these pastors were told to be on standby and to tell the people in the churches the truth about the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible, there are many gods actually, but the God of the Bible, again, allegedly Yahweh is Enlil, and then you have the Elohim, which is actually a collection of extraterrestrials, and their hybrids are called the elites, the Elohim, the Elites. So this is some information that people are now talking about or they're discovering. And I'm not saying it's true, but I will tell you it is true that pastors received a letter that said you must tell a congregation the truth about the God of the Bible, the truth about extraterrestrials, and the truth about where they came from. Because when that information is disclosed, if you don't tell them, a lot of people will lose it. What do you have to say
Even
to
the
that?
United States, even the United States government had to come out and admit that UFOs and aliens
Mm,
exist, right?
mm,
Everything
mm.
is happening so fast that it's hard for people to keep up,
I agree.
or at least the masses, the majority of people. But
Mm,
they're throwing it in here and there because they have to, because their
mm,
time is up, right? They were given a time period where they could do all of the things that they have done.
mm.
But we're already at that time period where the extraterrestrial beings, right? That you have the good and you have the fallen,
Right,
right?
right.
Those who are on the other side have come back and been traveling back and forth, but they've been saying at this point, all right, it's over. And this is the reason why they're talking about stand down, give the people back their resources, their land, stop enslaving the nations of the world. And it's happening at rapid speed because, again, they know that their time is up. They know that they have to admit it. And they know that this time period is here where everybody can have in abundance.
Yes.
Everybody, the wealth of the world is being restored back to its people. And as you mentioned, we're about to, like, we don't know when exactly the time will come that we're able to do all of these extraordinary things that you're mentioning. But you and I have been to Africa and we have seen, heard, and experienced extraordinary things that in
Absolutely.
America, when you come back, they say that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
when you're on the other side of the world, they say, no, it's not impossible, it's illegal, right? There's a difference. We don't know what is truly possible. Talking about, and they put it in our movies, right? But if they can think it, how could they just come up with concepts like uh flying, people flying, and telepathology and all of these things and starlights and extraterrestrials and all of these things, UFOs. They didn't just think that. Anything that you can think already exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so they put it in our face for several decades, showing us what they already knew was going on and what they were already dealing with behind the scenes. And now we are at the point where they can't keep the veil covered. The veil is being lifted and the scales are being lifted off of people's eyes and the truth is being exposed and they cannot stop the truth, right? A lie can only last for so long, but now we are experiencing so many truths that it is deteriorating and collapsing the system that we have lived in for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were talking about how we've been all over the world. This is just one article here. This isn't the one we witnessed, but here it says today Ghanaians are claiming they watched a bird turn into a human being. Not only that, a man in the comments said he witnessed the same thing happen back in 2007 in Ghana. When we were there, there were some men that they started flying. I don't know if they turned into birds or they started flying. And it just,
Turned into birds.
they turned into birds. We had just left that area. We were walking with some friends, some Ghanaian friends. I think we were going to the market. We had just left, but when we came back, there were all type of people gathered around, and there were all type of emergency
News
vehicles,
stations.
news. We were like, "What happened? We just left," and they were like, "Oh yeah, some guys turned into birds and they started flying, and then the government, sent some people over here and said they're not allowed to fly, and so they arrested one, and then but the others got away." And we were like, "Wait, what?" And they were like, "Yeah, this is common, but you're not allowed to use that anymore now that we're a Christian nation." You want to expound upon that? What happened?
Yeah, just basically what you said. We were walking uh in the streets in Ghana in the area that we were living at, and three men turned into birds, and the night before they had turned into birds and flew away. Their house was here, the police station was right across the street from them.
Mm-hmm.
So in the morning, they flew back to their house, but
Yeah.
they landed at the police station and not right at their house. So when they were transforming from birds into people, into men, the police saw them, and two of the men, before transforming completely into men, turned back into birds and flew away. The
Mm-hmm.
third man was arrested. He didn't have time enough to turn into a bird and fly away. And so he was arrested. When we were walking out, there was already a crowd of people. There was the news station. There was all just a plethora of people. When we're looking around like, what's going on? We asked our friends, what's going on? They asked the people in the crowd, they said, reported back to us. They said exactly what I said. Three men turned into birds, one got arrested. And I asked, like, why did he get arrested?
Yeah.
And the response was, well, because it's illegal to turn into animals. Like, excuse me, wait, what? It's illegal. It's not impossible. You said it's
It's,
illegal?
it's not
Like, yeah,
impossible. Oh, it's not impossible. Oh, it's illegal. Oh.
me pacho. Abego. It's not impossible. It's illegal. You can't do that because we're a Christian nation. We're Christians, and the Bible and the religion teaches us that we are not allowed to practice our traditions.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the reason why, again, Christianity was formed as a means of control, right? The
Mm-hmm.
wars that we have seen and experienced are not just about extracting resources, it's
Mm.
about destroying traditions and realities and putting a specific system into place, right? We talk about dimensions. We're on the 3D plane currently. Many will say that we were higher than 3D before these beings came onto this planet. When they came onto this planet, they lowered the vibration of this planet and
Mm-hmm.
forced us down into the third dimension. But they are
Mm-hmm.
fourth dimensional beings.
Mm.
This is the reason why it's been talked about where real soon they're saying that we're supposed to go from 3D, skip 4D, and go to the fifth dimension.
Wow.
Right. So this is just going back to everything that you just said. These are the things that are being discussed, but they are not necessarily discussing it to the public. But that doesn't mean just because they don't tell you about it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And then once they tell you about it, it's because it already happened and they
Mm.
can no longer hide it. But generally, when the average person tells you about it, it seems so far fetched that you say that's impossible. You're crazy. But crazy usually becomes sane
Mm.
over history. The crazy people in the past, in historical times, the people that we consider brilliant at their time period, they were considered crazy. And it
Wow.
took
Wow.
after their lifetime for people to reassess and time to catch up with the information that they were talking about for us to label them as geniuses.
Mm. Mm.
So just don't always go off of the narrative that people are crazy and that things are impossible. Because today we have internet. All of these stories you can look up on your own. You can type in "man turns into bird in Ghana 2015" and pull up the article, and you'll see exactly what we were talking about. And we were right there when it occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just Ghana. You can type in "man turns into bird," and these are stories that occur all throughout Africa. Man turns into lion, turns into tiger. All mermaids. You
I was
think
just
that
thinking.
movie? They had you think they just thought up this whole concept? Oh yeah, there's a woman fish. That's crazy. But it starts to make sense when you travel to other parts of the world and they talk about this as normal conversation.
Yeah, one of your friends said that they were. I think he said. What did he say? He was related to the mermaids or something like that. Oh,
I
he was just
don't,
telling
I
you about
don't.
the mermaids there. But yeah, people talk about how mermaids come from the water and actually walk amongst the people. When we were in Ghana, people would talk like that.
Mm-hmm. It's just common knowledge there.
And I see you looking through the comments. Before you go on, I want to show you what the pastors were told. So, family, just get comfortable. I'm going to show you how I said pastors and churches are on notice, and they were told to tell the people the truth.
Many of them are all over social
Hold
being told to prepare for a
on.
being told to prepare for a Bible-changing event. In fact, many of them are all over social media right now, and some are kind of freaking out over the information that they just heard. Now, according to them, there was a secret meeting in Tennessee with the 6 of them. They were not allowed to bring any phones or recording devices, but the meeting was held with supposedly people that are linked to the intelligence community still, whether or not they're still employed with the government, nobody knows. And reportedly also one congressman called into the meeting, and that was actually Eric Burleson. He's a congressman from Missouri. He called in. He doesn't know who was in attendance or what was said, but he called in and made a statement. But anyway, all of this is now going viral on the internet in light of the UFO disclosure that is up and coming. And this is what that meeting was all about. Now, before I even dive into this meeting, what makes this even more interesting is Kash Patel just came out and dropped a bombshell of his own when he was in an interview with Sean Hannity. And I'm going to let Kash Patel tell you the dealings here. But here he is talking about UFOs with Sean Hannity. Take a listen to what he says here.
Every other president before President Trump could have said, hey, let's look at that and get the American people the information. What did he do? He stood up an interagency process with Department of War leading that effort to get out the documentation related to everything that you're talking about, not just from the FBI, from the IC and everywhere else. And so what do? We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and they're going to be publicly releasing this information very soon.
Wow. They are going to be publicly releasing the information very soon. In other words, Kash Patel said, okay, Donald Trump, you want UFO files? Here's what we have from the FBI. Here is our first trunks of information. Now, there are reports that we're going to be getting this information in July. Hopefully it comes sooner, but considering the history, it could be prolonged as well. But either way, the president has his hands on some of that information. And let's just hope it's not like the last file release from the FBI. But either way, that is what we have. Now, kind of moving on to the pastors here, the big question is, okay, Kash Patel has delivered a trove of information to the FBI. I still want information from Area 51 and other things. But anyway, I digress. With all of that in the hands of the president, we now have pastors all over saying, we just had this secret meeting. They're about to disclose something huge. Take a look at this. And this is on Daily Mail. Religious leaders told to prepare now for UFO disclosure to unleash Bible-changing revelations. Now, again, this included pastors, and approximately 6 pastors were in on this. And I'm going to read you that part. This reported meeting involved approximately 6 Christian leaders, including Bishop Alan Ditto of Revival Nation Church, who confirmed he was part of the extraordinary gathering. Ditto actually said this. It seems like half of the dozen people were gathered in an Airbnb in the mountains of Tennessee discussing an investigation that's going on in the U.S. government against crimes they have committed in the process of retrieving and reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence. I believe UFOs are legit. I believe.
You hear that? Reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence. Very interesting.
they're interdimensional. I believe they're fallen angels, demons, and the whole 9 yards. But anyway, I do believe that they're using that technology and reverse engineering it. But he goes on to state that the meeting also went forward to discuss the propaganda plan that was in place leading up to disclosure. The pastor added in a March 7th live stream on YouTube. So there you go. Now here is the pastor, Alan Ditto, who made that statement that I just stated. He's got this whole video on it here. And he basically says, I was brought into a private meeting with other pastors. He wasn't allowed to record anything. And he says, disclosure is coming and many are going to be prepared for what follows. Pastors must begin preparing their flock. And he puts this 40-minute video out regarding that whole thing. But that's one of the things that I wanted to show you regarding all of this, that evidently this is a meeting that did happen. Now, there's another video that has come out regarding these pastors and what reportedly was said. And I want to show you this. This is on Shadow of Ezra. And he shares this clip of a man saying, he knows or heard about these pastors at this meeting. Take a listen to what is said here. And I'm going to add to it at the end, but take a listen.
Full of pastors invited to come to a private meeting with a group of men who are connected with the intelligence world that are believers, but are still have very high security clearance. These are legit, true men of God that are still connected to Washington, and even this current administration and all branches of the military.
Okay, so there is no way for us to confirm who was all at the meeting regarding whether or not they were actually connected to the IC. These are men, still potentially involved with the military and the United States government. I don't know. There's no way for us really to know. Nothing was recorded. Nothing was jotted. But this is reportedly the claim being made by some of the pastors. But here he goes on to say or details what he's been told.
And they literally told us, we had a sitting congressman, a very well-known congressman from Missouri. He called into that meeting as well. That was just for pastors. And this is what he said on speakerphone. This sitting powerful member of Congress said, are the pastors listening to me? I'm getting chills right now because this happened to me. He said, are the pastors in the room listening to me? And I said, yes, sir, we are here. And he said, listen to me. Go and tell the church they are not ready for what is coming. Narrative that is coming. What they are going to say is going to be like nothing you could even imagine. They are preparing to tell us that they are from another dimension, that they are our creator, and that these beings, these aliens, whatever you want to call them, they were the ones that seeded us here. There is no such thing as God. Jesus was invented by them. The Bible was invented by them. And begin to just say, listen, prepare the people for what is coming because they're not ready.
Pretty intense, right? So pastors are now being told to.
Well, that's that. I put that in the comment section or in the chat for you all to hear that. So much to digest, but basically 3 important things I pulled from that is that there's Bible changing information that was discussed at this meeting where pastors were. And second point I want to say is that they said that there was reverse technology from non-human extraterrestrial beings that humans have been using, and also that UFO disclosure is coming. And I'll yield to you, Mr. Lattimore. What do you think about this disclosure?
It all makes sense and it all is true. And that's the reason why it has to be disclosed. But what they do is they'll briefly mention truth and then they'll throw 1,000 distractions so that it gets mudded up in all of the information that you have to consume. And so most people miss the truth that they told. But again, we're at the point where truth can no longer be hidden. Right? We're already getting to that point where not only are we talking about these things, but these beings are about to present themselves. Before, they were presenting themselves to the leaders, right? First, the government leaders. Now it's already trickling down to the local leaders, i.e. the pastors. From there, it's going to go to the masses of people, and everybody will know this information because they can no longer hide it and their time is up. Again, they were given a time period where these certain things were allowed for a small time period. But we have to keep in mind that time is infinite. This earth is not just 5,000 years old. This earth, according to the scientists, they've had to admit more truths over the past several years, that this earth is at least millions of years old, if not billions of years old. The people on this planet, we have been here for millions of years. And there have been different cycles, as you mentioned earlier, of seeding and destroying. And we are at the point where they were given a very short time period in history to do these things. It seemed like a long time, 100 years, 400, 500 years. It seems like a long time, but in the true aspect of time and time being infinite, it was just a blimp in time. And
Right.
just like that, all of these things will be eradicated. All of these evils and corruptions and all of these things that has destroyed the planet are being eradicated, and we're entering the time period of abundance and the 1,000 years new heaven and new earth, as the scriptures mention, and the time period where heaven is coming down to earth, and vice simultaneously earth, the vibrations of earth, which were lowered, as I mentioned earlier, from a higher dimension to the third dimension, is being brought up. The vibrations are moving up, and we are moving back into the heavens. We are ascending into the heavens. And the vibrations, the low vibrations that have been on this planet, that has taken control of this planet, can no longer maintain their dominance.
Come
And
on.
this is the reason why these truths reverberate in us. When we hear these things, even if we've never heard it before, it makes sense to many of us. I saw one person in the comments say that they dream often that they can fly. These things, like we are receiving information and downloading information, right? Our hair, the reason why they told us to fry our hair is because our hair is the antennas, right? Your thought is not your thought. Your thought is a vibration that is moving at this a certain time, and you will either connect to that vibration and that information, or if you are fried, then your receptors will miss that information, and then they will give you information for you to absorb through your eyes and through your ears.
Yeah, our
But that
hair
time is
is
up.
absolutely. Our hair is an extension of our central nervous system, and our hair actually, if you're indigenous, or even a lot of people that are mixed, or and that some of them don't even know that they're mixed, but our hair stretches out or reaches towards the sun. We receive information from the sun. We receive information from the ancestral realm, and like you said, that information, the ancestral information, informs us how we should live our lives. But they told us to perm our hair, dye our hair, fry our hair, even cut our
Cut
hair.
it. Hmm. That
When
was
people
one
go
of the
ahead, yeah,
many
you too.
things that they did when they conquered every nation that they conquered. The first thing that they did was to shave their heads off.
Hmm. Hmm. In many African countries, they still shave everybody's little baby's hair as soon as they enter school, even the girls. And
The
they
girls
think
cannot have hair.
they can't have hair. They're told, well, you need uniforms, just like we have uniforms in America, and shave your head so that everybody can be treated the same. But what does that actually mean? It sounds like they're saying we're treating everybody like they're what, a robot, or they're slave
Uniformity as
uniform.
slave.
Mm, mm,
Hmm. Everybody, you can't be an individual. You can't be who you truly are.
mhm,
You have to take yourself down from who you are and who you're supposed to be in order to be uniform, and everybody to be in the same box, in the same incarceration, the
mm,
same chains, right? And the thing about slavery, they said even during slavery that you can only keep people in chains, physical chains, for so long before, if you keep them physically in chain, then they will revolt. But you
mm,
have to go from the physical chains to the mental chains, right?
mm,
And so they have mentally incarcerated us, incarcerated our minds and our thought process, to where after you take off the chains, they will
mm,
never fight you. They will never disagree with you because you tell them what's true and you tell them what's a lie. And so they will always dismiss the information of their elders and their ancestors.
I see somebody in the comment section that was saying they're mixed, but they don't have 4C hair. One of the reasons why the gingers or the ginjas, the red haired people from the that are European descent or Caucasians are so excited is because they're knowing what we indigenous people have always known, that if you have any type of coil in your hair or curl in your hair, no matter what race or ethnicity you come from, you are, then you likely have some type of Moorish blood or indigenous blood in you. And if you have red hair or freckles, that's still melanin. And your grandparent, great grandparent, or at least four generations ago was actually a Moor or somebody black or Africanoid or indigenous to these
Melanated.
lands.
Mm-hmm.
Melanated,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes.
Even the classification of a Jew, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that they knew who the Jews were is because they had black hair, dark hair, or curly hair and dark eyes, right? The Aryan race is a part of the descendants of the Nephilim. And the one way to classify the Aryans was because they had green eyes and blonde hair. And so this was what the whole war, the Second World War, they were eliminating the melanated people in Europe, because up until that point, from 711 to 1492, the Moors ruled Western Europe. From, I want to say, 1092 to 1911, the Ottomans ruled Eastern Europe.
And they were melanated. So,
yes,
the Moors and the Ottomans were melanated. Okay.
Both were melanated groups of people who were in charge of Europe.
Okay.
Right. 1492 is significant to America, to the United States, because Christopher Columbus sailed to America in 1492. This year is also important to Spain, Portugal, and the rest of Europe, because that's when they finished kicking out the Moors from Europe. 1911 is important because that's when, or 1918, that's when the end of World War I was them kicking out the melanated people in Eastern Europe. Right? And then they have parades where they dress up in blackface and they get chased by the bull. That's them celebrating them kicking out the Moors. All right. So, but again, as you mentioned, these even the Caucasian people that are here are appreciating the truth that they are finally being exposed to, that they have curls in their hair. Their hair is brown. Their hair, like most people, even most Europeans, most Caucasians are not naturally blonde. They
true.
dye their hair blonde. But often they don't know why they dye their hair blonde. Even I remember in the early 2000s, it was a thing where everybody wanted contacts in their eyes, and everybody wanted to put in blue eyes and green eye contacts, not really understanding why. But the melanin in your eye is an indication of what your ancients and your ancestors had on their skin, which is pigmentation.
So why are they told to make their hair blonde, or to wear contacts, or that blonde hair, blue eyes is the standard of beauty? What is this programming about?
Exactly what you just, it's called programming for a reason. You're programming the people's minds, one, to think that there are more of them than actually are on the planet. Because if the world really knew and understood over the last 100 years that they were less than 10% of the population of the world, then it would have been hard to maintain dominance. So what you do is you inflate your numbers, right? In America, they, for example, on the demographics of the people, I can't remember what I'm looking for a word, but they during on the census, they have certain boxes, right? They have white, black, and what else? Asian, maybe. But there are a lot of boxes that are omitted because they want for people to classify as white. And if you classify it, so a lot of the foreigners who came to America, even Africans, dark skinned Africans, darker than us, Indian, darker than us, come here and check the white box. What does that do? That boosts the numbers for them so that they can say, oh, we're 60% of the population or more. We are the majority. And in this democratic system, the majority rules. So you minority people, you are the minority. So doesn't really matter what you want. We make the rules. And when you go outside and you see a bunch of blonde-haired people, blue eyes, green eyes, you're thinking, you're looking around, you say, well, we are the minority. But that nonsense is being destroyed, and people are no longer believing that they are the true majority even of this country. And definitely they are the absolute minority of the world.
Absolutely. And, like you said, the Aryans that came out of the mountains, the Caucasus Mountains, were actually extraterrestrial. And people, a lot of people don't know that they and or their cohorts created a kind of man that was mixed with their genetics and our indigenous genetics. And now we have man and mankind living on the planet. And this is why, who was that guy? Was it Neil Armstrong? That went so-called went to the moon? Look up
Yes.
his famous quote. I know you all know it. This is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Right.
One small step, landing on the moon, discovering any planets, it's a small thing for indigenous people, man. But it's a giant leap for the kind of man, because it would have meant that the kind of man, the mankind that was grafted out of man, made some huge monumental discovery that meant nothing to us.
Because
And I
we were
yield.
traveling the galaxies for millennia, right?
Mhm.
Even the Dogons introduced the what's it one of the star patterns, Orion's belt, introduced that to the Europeans.
Mhm.
And the Europeans said, well, how could you all know about this? Oh, because we travel there, they travel here. We've been having this interaction since we've been here on this planet, right? Khufu's ship, right? And this is another thing that they do. They tell us that our history was mythology,
Mhm.
and we just actively believe whatever they say. But Khufu's ship, they said, Khufu's ship was navigating from the Nile into the Milky Way. So there's a lot of information, right? Again, these wars are not just to extract the resources, but also to destroy our libraries and to destroy our information so that when they tell us something, we have to believe what they say because we can't go into the documents and into the libraries and give proof, physical proof, that what they're saying is not true.
Yeah, and I often say that this bloodline war is ancient. It's ancient. It really isn't black white. White is a status in law, mean meaning that allegedly you are pristine, you have you're part of the empire. White was a status that was actually the indigenous people status, because we owned or managed or stewarded the land. Not only that, we sprung from the soil here. That's what I say. I don't know the word autogenous means. It means the same genetics that's in the soil is in the genetics of our indigenous colon. We sprang from the soil. So the beings that came on this planet that either raped us, molested us, or grafted other beings out of us are fighting against us because we are the originals of the planet. And for some reason, these beings have an ought or some type of thing against us. But we didn't only just spring from the soil here. Many people say indigenous people came from Sirius B, right? Sirius, and you can even look that up. I looked it up. The idea that Black people or humanity came from Sirius B originates from the oral tradition. They don't like to acknowledge our oral traditions. The oral tradition of the Dogon of Mali. It was popularized by a book called The Sirius Mystery. Mainstream science and anthropology attribute the Dogon's astronomical knowledge to cultural exchange with Western visitors or misinterpretations, while alternative theories view it as ancient contact. Just to go along with what you say.
Absolutely.
It's a
They have
bloodline.
deceived the people for far too long, but the deception time is over, and truth will prevail.
Absolutely. I keep hearing Kanye West's song in my head, "When It All Goes Down," because everything's crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah. So that truth can prevail.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that they built has been built on lies. And their foundation is weak. And when you have a weak foundation, when you have a house built on sand, then eventually that foundation will give and that house will fall apart.
Absolutely, and it's falling apart. The United States incorporated itself as a nonprofit religious organization with the Pope at the forefront, and that's what gave Pope Francis the authority to send out this letter, July 4th, 2014, to then President Obama. Civil orders. We call it motu proprio. I have a video out on it. You can listen to my video or just go to my channel, type in motu, M-O-T-U, proprio, P-R-O-P-R-I-O, I think it is. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Services, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association and the American Armed Services. These organic American states of the Union, known as the United States of America Major, exercising plenary civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic and its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, included but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, etc., General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America Major, stationed in North America, and shall join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic shall be charged as stipulated prior. All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union without exception. The GAR or Grand Army of the Republic is uniquely enabled by these orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purposes of securing the lives and securing the property of the American states and American state citizens. The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. If required to take field position, the local commander shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reasons for their presence on American state soil to ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of the usurpation and the acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extant from the pen of the last Republic president, who was Abraham Lincoln. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by then President Barack H. Obama, pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as, quote, president, unquote, of the all caps United States Corporation, nor as the president of the United States of America minor, are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. All plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America remain in place, subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. Mr. Obama is the so-called president, quote unquote, of a governmental services corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll, the United States Incorporated, the corporation. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil, however veiled as federal civilian service agencies. We require the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Ham, who is the commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize or take control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the so-called Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the all caps United States. The only federal agency allowed free ingress on the land of the American states is the United States Marshal Services, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the United States mail and sworn to act as constitutional officers. All other federal agency personnel are limited to unarmed services until further notice. We, Pope Francis says, direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to communicate these first two general civil orders directly to Mr. Obama, the members of the United States Congress, quote unquote, the administrators to all so-called federal agencies, which I told you all has been deemed as treasonous, the members of the Supreme Court, quote unquote, and those acting as governors, to compel their rapid understanding, and they must cooperate, and their cooperation. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizens as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American state soil will be understood as the result of violent crimes committed against their peaceful inhabitants of the land and will incur immediate judgment, liquidating the assets of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, and liquidating the assets of the Federal Reserve in payment of the stipulated reparations. Such crimes shall also be considered contractual or contract defraud, increasing the public debt subject to bounty. Any and all corporate officers of the all caps United States or any successor organizations inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes. This is probably why President Trump came forward recently and said, if you seek to trick, steal from, or harm Americans, we will find you, freeze your assets, and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Pope Francis goes on and says, all foreign officials operating as elected or appointed officials of the United States of America Minor who support, condone, and promote such crimes against the American states or against American state citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, and deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or other such states as may be willing to receive them. Such so-called foreign affairs or officers or officials include members of the American and British bar associations, the judges, the so-called attorneys, all of them subject to foreign officials. They were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American states and American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 in flagrant breach of trust. Their contracts are up. You see, 2013. All such licenses are now extinguished. This letter was written in 2014. Members of the Bar Association, you know how they passed the bar exam, attorneys and judges. Members of the Bar Association, British Accredited Registry, are required to cease and desist assaults against the American states and the American state citizens and shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation otherwise. In so much as corporate officers operating the United States of America Incorporated and the United States all cap entity have contrived under conditions of fraud and semantic deceit to revenue the estates of the American states and living American state citizens to the foreign jurisdiction of the United States of America Minor, they are found guilty of capital crimes, including acts of fraud and treason committed between 1935 and 1945 and are condemned posthumously. In so much as elected officials operating the United States of America Minor have similarly committed war crimes against the American states and their peaceful inhabitants during the same time period, they stand condemned posthumously. No enforcement upon any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any so-called Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America Minor, nor as the board of directors or the board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All these states are really estates of indigenous people. All of these estates and all cap estates erroneously believed to be represented or to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America Minor, are more recently to the city-state of the United Nations and revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and the American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. All legal fiction entities, all caps, entities, however structured and named after the American states and American state citizens, are returned to them and their control, free and clear of any debt and promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America Incorporated and the all caps United States Incorporated, or by any foreign officials operating the United States of America Minor or the United Nations city-state falsely claiming to represent them or having jurisdiction over them. All the stuff that was stolen by us, by all of these corporations or entities, must be returned back to us, and our debt must be wiped away free and clear. We note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans, who were summarily claimed as chattels backing the U.S. government debt in the wake of the Civil War. Despite every act, in case you don't understand that, African Americans, the indigenous people here, are the prisoners of war of the United States Incorporated and the dirty Moors that brought the Europeans over here. We're prisoners of war. We lost the battle against the Moors, which are really black nobility extraterrestrials that came from Europe and brought their European slaves with them. We lost the battle. So now we were considered chattel property to back the United States debt in the wake of the Civil War. This most likely also ties into the 14th Amendment at some point, which was created after the Civil War, that said that children of slaves can now be considered citizens. And now, for some reason, these unlawful attorneys attach the 14th Amendment to foreign nationals and allow them and their children to be called United States citizens. But they don't get birthright citizen status, not lawfully. That was for the children of African Americans or children of slaves. Despite, I'll read that again. We note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels or chattel property backing United States government debt in the wake of the Civil War. In case you didn't know, African American, that whole title, whatever you want to label, is actually a label of produce and meat. Okay, that's what African American literally means. It's a category of produce and meat. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the United States government to enslave all of its citizens, and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Rogue state. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, which Mr. Lattimore talked about earlier today, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we're now dealing with today. Pope Francis then wrote, "It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic, or the GAR, is recalled to settle the circumstance in favor of the people." This is what people are calling today the white hats of the military, taking down the deep state or the United States Incorporated and all those bloodline families that enslaved not only African Americans here in America, but the entire planet. And what gave Pope Francis the authority to write that letter, you may ask, and send it to Obama in 2014? It is because the United States Incorporated, which usurped our lands here and our resources and our lawful republic, which everybody says, return, restore the republic of the people. Who are the people? The indigenous people. We created it. We wrote it. That's why the first few presidents were brown. But the United States Incorporated stole our land and created their own government and incorporated themselves in 1871 as a nonprofit religious organization with the Pope as the head of it. And they have a Constitution of the United States Incorporated. That's not to be confused with the Constitution for our lawful republic. They have their own statutes, codes, policies, not laws. Statutes, codes, and policies. And they have policy enforcers known as police officers that enforce their policies. Police officers are treasonous and they will end. If you look it up right now, police departments all across the lands are downsizing and they're being closed, and all the services will go over to the sheriff department because our sheriffs enforce the law according to our republic. Everything is being dismantled and everything is being disclosed. Now, that letter was sent to President Obama, and you can read other parts of the letter or other renditions of the letter saying we are to cease and desist immediately. It took 10 years from 2014 when they wrote that letter for the Supreme Court of the United States to overturn the Chevron Doctrine, which expanded the powers of the United States Incorporated and said, y'all been given too much power. We overturning the doctrine and we're declaring the United States Incorporated as unlawful and treasonous and unconstitutional. And every judge that went along with the shenanigans of the United States Incorporated also committed treason. And every judge that knew of a judge that went along with this foolishness and didn't report it to the president committed misprision of treason. And that's why judges and attorneys are being arrested today, because not only have they colluded along with the United States Incorporated and all 447 government agencies against we the people and the American citizens that were here, but they brought foreign nationals over here to continue on their bidding. So these judges are being arrested. These attorneys are being arrested. And all these foreign nationals, we're not talking about people who were just coming over here seeking an opportunity. We're not just talking about migrants who are really looking for opportunities because they're still part of America, the landmass, right? We're talking about foreign nationals who came from all over abroad, who were rich, dropped off their babies here and allowed their children to be born here so that their children can erroneously be classified as United States citizens using the 14th Amendment clause that was not for them. All those attorneys have committed treason. All those judges that allowed this have committed treason. And they work for the American Bar Association and the British Credit Registry Association, because the American government and the British government are all foreign nationals that enslaved first the American indigenous autonomous people, erroneously called Black and African American Negroes, here in America. But we're waking up, and so is the rest of the world. You know what's interesting to me? Nobody came to save us. Nobody cared about what the African Americans or Black folk, Negro, whatever you want to call us, indigenous autonomous people. Nobody, no foreign national, no foreign government said, hey, you've been enslaved. You're a prisoner of war. Everybody's been allowed to come on your land and take your land, take your resources. They didn't just take your gold and silver because it was money. They took your gold and silver and copper because these things are precious, sentient metals that helped you to fly, helped you to regrow limbs, helped you to ascend to the God consciousness that you are, because you're connected to the ancestral beings that came from Sirius B, that created the stars and the planets that people talk about today. That's why they stole your gold. This is why the Anunnaki even came to America, and not America. Yeah, America, the planet, the earth plane, when everything, Pangea, that was America. It broke up and people spread out. The plane, Turtle Island, spread out. The Anunnaki came here from, what is it? Anu, and the Anunnaki beings came here from Nibiru to take our gold, because our gold was so precious, it healed their planet. That's why they've been allowed here to take our gold, our precious metals, our organs, which are heavily melanated. We are the original beings, heavily melanated. They took it from, but what foreign nation do you know anywhere on this earth plane said, come, indigenous, autogenous people of the Americas, we will rescue you, we will fight for you, we will allow you to have a baby here and your child can automatically become a citizen? Not a one. So when we say they all gotta go, we mean it, and we say it with every fiber of our being. If you can't live in harmony with the indigenous people here on our lands and the lands of our ancestors, you got to go. Today, tomorrow, we don't care. You gotta go. Either you would get along with the indigenous autogenous people here and agree to our government, the Republic, and you would get along with whatever we say is for we the people, which is really the laws based on the indigenous people here. And you will honor the treaties that we have with any foreign nationals we allow here. Either that or you got to go. Cut the corner. Get your hat, your coat. Cut the corner. You ain't got to go home, but you have to get off these lands because nobody cared about us. Not a one. Not a one nation, not a one government. And I'm not talking about care in words. I'm talking about in deeds. Now, I will say that parts of the Russian government and North Korea said that the American indigenous true people are the ones that's supposed to be running the government. So they didn't want to deal with the United States Incorporated. They didn't want to deal with their money. That's why we are told they're enemies and adversaries. But which one of them reached out to us and gave us citizenship status or a part of their sovereign wealth fund or allowed us any benefits like all the foreign nationals that come over here and get government benefits? They don't just all get in one house and take care of each other and buy a house and then buy another house. They got government funds. They got food stamps, welfare, medical, free housing, free benefits, and loans without even having a social security number because they were stealing ours. All the foreign nationals that came here and called themselves this American, that American, that I won't even say the nation American. No, that's identity theft, because the definition of American, and I'll bring it up again, 1828 Webster's definition, but there are others, is the copper-colored races discovered by Europeans, but now applied to Europeans. They know they're not from here. They're not Americans. The United States citizens, chattel property of the corporation that is now defunct and insolvent and collapsing today. So people are going to have to get it together and recognize who the true Americans are and respect us and respect our government called the lawful republic of we the people. That's why our wealth is being returned. That's why not only our gold is being repatriated from the Vatican, but everybody's gold is being repatriated from the Vatican, because we all been lied to and we all just want to get along and live in peace. But I'll say it again. The United States Incorporated that gave all these people citizenship status is gone. The remnant that looks to remain is being arrested right now, and they're afraid for their lives. You don't believe me? Look at the immigration attorneys talking on YouTube. Everybody that disrespected us got to go. I don't even care if you brownie from the Caribbean Island. I don't give not 1 cent. If you came over here peddling drugs like a lot of people from the Caribbean island, and you said you were better than North Americans and you work hard and we're lazy and we don't take advantage of the opportunities here, and at least you got a place to go to, you waved your flag arrogantly in our faces, you got to go too, expeditiously. Because if you remain on these lands, you will get along with us and you will treat us with respect. Period. Thus saith Dr. Pruitt, and I speak on behalf of the indigenous people. Ashe, 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 oh, and Amen Ra, meaning amen. And I will yield the floor.
I think you said everything that needs to be said.
Yes, sir. And as
I
said,
concur.
You concur. And as I said before, we have really been kind to all the people that's been here. The Europeans and all the other foreign nationals that came after them. We fought with the European women called white women in the feminist movement. We fought with the brown people, the Mexican people. We even fought, and recently when they said stop Asian hate, we fought with everybody, the Cubans, everybody. We fought presidents. We fought laws. We wanted to be liberal to accept everybody, but from now on, people who can't respect us must either get along or bow and kiss the ring, period. We are the gods and the kings, the queens, the emperors and empresses of these great Americas. And if you don't know, now you know.
Now you know. I have nothing else to say. I agree with everything that you have said. I appreciate being on the show today. It's been an amazing show. We have covered a plethora of topics, and I want for everybody to stay encouraged, because no matter what is occurring right now, no matter what it looks like, the future is bright and the future is beautiful. And if you set yourselves up the right way, then your present can be just as good as your future.
And where can people meet you or follow your work, Mr. Lattimore?
Well, they can follow me on my channel. I'm back putting up a few videos on there, so I'll be putting up more videos here in the near future. That's at Dex Lattimore here on YouTube. And if you want information on insurance, life insurance, or if you need help with your medical insurance, you can email me at dexlattimore@gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions, just any general questions, you can email me, and those would be the best places to be with me.
That's dexlattimore@gmail.com. And you can follow his work again on YouTube, Dex Lattimore. If you're interested in sending him a donation, then please feel free to send it to $Dex Lattimore. And as we were talking, family, if you sent me a Cash App gift, I thank you so very much. The Soul Tribe loves and appreciates you. Dr. Pruitt also appreciates you. My Cash App is $Mama Kia 13. That's $MAMAKIA 113. Having said that, family, we're going to get on out of here. Enjoy the music, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace. Can you turn off your camera, Dex?
Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia lights the way to a new and brighter day.
Peace, family. Happy Friday. Yay! Go out and make this a great day. See you on the other side.